Chapter 1042 Great Chaotic Battle. Chapter 1042 Great Chaotic Battle. The three of you have to work together. I allow you to compete, but that's amongst yourselves. You have to unite when you face a common enemy, understand? Han Ling's voice was indifferent, but it was extremely oppressive. Han Yi and the other two nodded and promised not to act recklessly. Han Ling instructed again before Han Yi and the other two left. Han Ling took out a mirror as she looked at their departing figures. This mirror was golden and murky. Han Ling's lips moved as she silently chanted. Soon, a shadow crawled out of the mirror. It was her Emperor Soldier. The Emperor Soldier transformed into a beam of light and sped away. Han Ling smiled and closed her eyes. Shirtian, in the extreme abyss. Dense mist filled the air. One could vaguely see the undulating mountains. A huge river of light floated in the air and flowed quietly, bringing light to a radius of billions of kilometers. Dao Sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan Jiang Yi, and Lao Dan flew over and stopped in front of the river. Lao Dan clicked his tongue in wonder. Shirtian is really magical. A supreme rule actually fell. This is something that I don't dare to think about in the chaos. Jiang Yi shook his head. I'm afraid it's a conspiracy. Recently, the chaos has been wreaking havoc in Shirtian. The appearance of this supreme rule can attract most chaotic cultivators. We can destroy everyone in one go if we set up an ambush. Zhao Xinyuan smiled. It's not that easy. Junior Huang swept through Shirtian alone. How can Shirtian organize their combat strength to annihilate the chaos? Jiang Yi smiled as he felt that it made sense. Dao Sovereign stared at the supreme rule, thinking about something. Lao Dan was about to speak when a powerful aura arrived. I, the great heavenly god king, want this supreme rule. A powerful shout sounded. Great heavenly god king. One of the 10 absolute prodigies of the first chaotic assembly. Dao Sovereign frowned. He naturally remembered the great heavenly god king. This fellow made him very unhappy. He didn't expect to encounter him here today. Dressed in a clean white robe, the great heavenly god king stepped on a white dragon. The white dragon was 10,000 miles long. Its 4 claws stepped on the clouds and rode the mist. It was mighty and domineering. The great heavenly god king smiled as his gaze landed on Dao Sovereign. Isn't this the dark horse who suddenly deflated halfway through the chaotic assembly? TSK, are you coveting external forces again? Be careful not to empty your Dao heart and lose yourself. These words were extremely vicious, causing Dao Sovereign's eyes to erupt with killing intent. Without another word, Dao Sovereign attacked the great heavenly god king. Jiang Yi followed closely behind. Zhao Xinyuan did not attack. Instead, he looked at the supreme rule and asked Lao Dan, Old man, what power do you think this supreme rule represents? Boom! The 3 great Dao Supremes fought chaotically, shaking the world, causing the evil mist in the world to churn violently. Lao Dan stared at the supreme rule and said, Its aura is vast, but it's not ferocious at all. Perhaps it's related to karma and providence. At this moment, powerful auras arrived from all directions of this endless abyss. Zhao Xinyuan and Lao Dan were moved. Damn it, why is it so fast? Zhao Xinyuan cursed in a low voice. He took out a red sword made of dragon blood and prepared to fight. On the other side, Han Yu Qinling, Azure Heaven Mystic, Ji Xianxian, and Zhao Shuangquan rode a green light and sped through the void. Zhao Shuangquan stared ahead and said, The battle has already begun. There are at least 10 great Dao Supremes. The number of great Dao sages is constantly increasing. There are already more than 30. Han Yu sighed. The fight for the supreme rules is really crazy. Ji Xianxian smiled. This scene reminds me of when I was still a mortal, Sage Feng Liang, and I also wandered around. We dared to barge in no matter how many enemies there were. All sorts of things from back then appeared in front of him. Then, why is your relationship with Sage Feng Liang? Qinling asked in surprise. Han Yu glared at him. Ji Xianxian smiled. There will always be differences on the path of pursuit. Once some cracks appear, they can't be healed. Even if the two sides want to reconcile, you juniors have to consider carefully, especially when it involves people close to you. Qinling, Azure Heaven Mystic, and Zhao Shuangquan were thoughtful. All right, let's not talk about this. The commotion caused by the supreme rules this time is so great. Just try your best when the time comes. You can't fight to the death even if you can't obtain it, understand? Ji Xianxian waved his hand and smiled. His gaze landed on Azure Heaven Mystic and Zhao Shuang. Zhao Shuangquan said proudly, I am the eternal peak. I'm naturally invincible. Azure Heaven Mystic snorted, You're really arrogant. If not for the fact that I didn't attend this chaotic assembly, how could you have obtained the eternal peak so easily? Zhao Shuangquan chuckled. They were not the only ones. Other chaotic factions also rushed over. The current Shirtian had already become a banquet of the chaos. The various factions were fighting to split it amongst themselves. 5 million years later, Hanju opened his eyes and checked his emails. During this seclusion, he felt many times that a huge battle had erupted. It was not only Shirtian, but also the chaos. It even involved the ultimate god of punishment. However, the ultimate god of punishment and the disciples did not use the invocation technique to summon him, so he did not care. Your disciple Dao Sovereign was attacked by your good friend Zhao Shuangquan. Your disciple Dao Sovereign was attacked by your good friend Azure Heaven Mystic. Your disciple Jiang Yi was attacked by your descendant Han Yu. Your disciple Dao Sovereign was attacked by your son Han Tua and was severely injured. Your son Han Tua was attacked by your descendant Han Yi. Your son Han Tua was attacked by your descendant Han Yao and was severely injured. Your descendant Han Yao was attacked by your enemy, the nine-headed divine spirit. He was severely injured. Your enemy was attacked by your good friend Huang Zuantian and was severely injured. Good Lord, had these guys gone mad? Hanju couldn't help but deduce that chaotic battle. So it was to fight for a supreme rule of Shirtian. This supreme rule was controlled by a force that Hanju couldn't even deduce. The immeasurable destruction venerable. How despicable. No one from the chaos obtained the supreme rule, even after tens of thousands of years of chaotic battle. Instead, they were all injured. The supreme rule shattered into 3,000 fragments and scattered in every corner of Shirtian, under the immeasurable destruction venerable's deliberate control. In the next 2 million years, it became a divine crystal that could satisfy any wish of all living beings, causing another huge commotion. Hanju discovered that after the chaos fused with Shirtian, the overall domain was actually expanding. New creations and strange lands were also born in the chaos, and the chaotic spirit chi was also steadily increasing. The chaos would increase by another level when the purity great Tao world arrived. From the looks of it, the 4 Tao creators had already compromised with the 9th chaos. Otherwise, they should have resisted and not watched as their great Tao world was devoured. Although the immeasurable destruction venerable was plotting against the chaos, his methods were too small and could not be shown. He couldn't stop the situation of the chaos at all, and could only avenge himself. Progenitor, I've already comprehended the curse power. Do you want me to curse anyone? Tell me, who do you want me to curse? Shania's voice floated over from the side. His tone was filled with excitement and anticipation. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1043 Turing Shirtian. Chapter 1043 Turing Shirtian. Oh, will your curse be deduced? Hanju raised his eyebrows. His tone was calm, like a basin of cold water extinguishing Shani's excitement. Shani hesitated for a moment and said, Those weaker than me shouldn't be able to deduce me. I can't guarantee that with those with higher cultivation levels than me, Hanju said meaningfully. No one can deduce the dark forbidden lord. Your target is him. Perhaps his cultivation level is top-notch, so no one can deduce it? Then you have to have a top-notch cultivation level. Before that, you can't curse anyone to prevent trouble. But, Shania's face immediately turned pale. How long would it take for him to reach the top standard Hanju mentioned? Hanju smiled. I should test your strength. Are you prepared? Shani asked in surprise. What do you want to do? Hanju introduced the simulation trial to him and gave him the authority to use it. As expected, Shani quickly became obsessed with the simulation trial. Shani was still a little short of the great Tao realm. His cultivation talent was clearly not as high as the other creation stars. Perhaps this was their strength. Shani's curse origin star was not in existence that could fight head-on. Shani couldn't dominate the freedom realm in the simulation trial. but he felt that he was invincible in the same realm. Little did he know that Han Ling could fight 10,000 people of the same realm. Han Ju didn't have high requirements for Shani, so he didn't use Han Ling to suppress him. Looking at the simulation trial, Han Ju stood up and left. After interacting with his Dao companions for a period of time, Han Ju came to the 100-peak Immortal River and visited Fairy Shixian. Coincidentally, Chang Yuer was also here. Junior Han. Seeing Han Ju appear, Chang Yuer immediately smiled in surprise. She immediately rushed over and hugged him. You really care about Master. I've never seen you visit me before. Chang Yuer giggled. She was not jealous at all, because she knew that she had no right to be. If not for Han Ju, she would have long turned to dust. How could she have achieved her current freedom cultivation? Fairy Shixian berated her. Yuer, don't talk nonsense. Tens of millions of years passed. The two women had already become family. After all, to them, their old friends were already dead. Han Ju smiled. It's fine. Senior is still the same as before. It's good. If you're distant from me, I'll feel uncomfortable instead. Chang Yuer smiled even more proudly. She hugged his arm and refused to let go. Han Ju had to remind her tactfully, and naturally pulled his arm out. The three of them sat down and started chatting. Han Ju asked them about their experiences during this period of time. Chang Yuer began to chatter nonstop. Han Ju and Fairy Shixian smiled at her, and found it interesting. Although the cultivation days were boring, the occasional atmosphere was quite satisfying. Even though Han Ju had an invincible goal, he enjoyed his current situation. His days would probably be as calm as now when he was invincible. However, he did not pursue invincibility to have an exciting life. It was just to ensure his safety. Chang Yuer spoke for 2 hours without finishing. Han Ju smiled. Are you very curious about Shirtian? Yes, but I heard that Shirtian's battle was extremely tragic. I shouldn't join in the fun. I'm afraid that I'll lose my life if I'm not careful. You can leave your soul fragment behind. You can revive even if you die. Your freedom after all. What if I encounter the legendary Great Tao Supreme? It will be bad if they use the Tao of Karma to destroy my soul fragment to kill my main body. It's fine. You can summon me if you encounter danger. I'll support you. Really? Chang Yuer asked in surprise. Han Ju smiled and nodded. Fairy Shixian frowned. Yuer, don't be like this. Han Ju is busy cultivating. How can he divert his attention to you? Chang Yuer curled her lips, and felt that it made sense. Han Ju smiled. With my cultivation, not to mention helping you, even splitting 10,000 wills is as easy as flipping my palm. Chang Yuer thought for a moment and said, forget it. Han Ju said, how about I accompany you? I'll play for 1,000 years before coming back to cultivate. Chang Yuer's eyes lit up. Really? Yes. That's great. Master, do you want to go together? This is a good opportunity to nurture experience. Chang Yuer giggled. Han Ju saw through her schemes and knew that she pretended to almost let it slip. However, Han Ju didn't expose her. Chang Yuer's intentions were mainly to please him. Chang Yuer might really like him. More than 80 million years had passed, and she had never had an affair with other men. Han Ju could deduce this. This opportunity was also a chance for them to grow closer to each other. Previously, Xing Hongxian had also reminded him that Fairy Shixian and Chang Yuer were still waiting for him. Why didn't she give him a chance? Not to mention a transcendent cultivation expert like Han Ju. There were countless ordinary Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal women. Of course, some men liked multiple women. However, Han Ju already had enough women, and was clearly not looking for more. Fairy Shixian hesitated at Chang Yuer's suggestion. Han Ju looked at her and smiled. Let's go together. I want you to go. We've known each other for so long, but we've never traveled together. Fairy Shixian smiled. All right. Just like that. The two women packed up and followed Han Ju to Shirtian. As a Tao creator, Han Ju would not be rejected no matter where he went. This was a realm that surpassed the Great Tao world. However, once he entered Shirtian, he would definitely be noticed by the immeasurable destruction venerable. He believed that the immeasurable destruction venerable could guess his reason after seeing the two women. With their cultivation levels, There was really no need to destroy each other's great Tao world and form a death grudge. If the great Tao world perished, the Tao creator would not die. As long as the great Tao world was destroyed not too late, the Tao creator could directly recover. Just like how the ninth chaos directly revived all living beings in the chaos. It was so domineering. They quickly entered Shirtian under Hanju's lead. Chang Yue looked around. It doesn't look much different from the chaos. I heard that Junior Han's children are also fighting for a huge opportunity in Shirtian. I wonder if I can encounter them on this trip. Hanju smiled. They're indeed still around, but there's no need to encounter them. They're busy fighting for opportunities and don't have the time like us. Fairy Shixian asked, could it be that one of your descendants created the recently famous creation Emperor Court in the chaos? Yes, Linger created it. Ah, that girl is so powerful? Chang Yue was surprised. She had always felt that Han Ling was weak and adorable, unlike Han Qinger, who was as lively as her. Hanju smiled. My daughter is probably comparable to Huang. Chang Yue was even more shocked. Fairy Shixian smiled. I sensed it before. She's very similar to the past you. Thinking of the past, she tried her best to fight for opportunities for Hanju. But whenever she wanted to go out or there was some risk, Hanju would not accept it no matter what. He would appear humble to everyone, and even look weak in their eyes. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Come. Chapter 1044 Appearance of the Deity. Chapter 1044 Appearance of the Deity. Although Shirtian was in chaos, that was only for the environment. Many places were still peaceful and not harmed. Hanju and the other two came to a great world at the edge of Shirtian. It was like the earth in the Milky Way. It lay quietly in the corner of the void, lonely and beautiful. The living beings in this world were very weak. The strongest living being was only an immortal emperor. No wonder they were not affected. Of course, they would probably not be able to escape the outcome of being destroyed if they encountered cultivators who wanted to slaughter them. The three of them entered the world. Countless mortal worlds gathered around this world, like the heavenly Tao. They were still dominated by humans. To be precise, they were a race with connate Tao physique. They had different names in different worlds. With the cultivation of Hanju and the other two, they could directly understand the language of this world. There was no obstacle in communication. They first entered a mortal world and began to travel. Hanju chatted and laughed with them as he looked into the depths of Shirtian. Another huge battle erupted. He saw some familiar figures. Han Tua, Etian Han Huang, Han Yi, Han Yao Dao Sovereign, Zhao Xinyuan Han Bahen, Zhao Shuangchuan, Huang Zuantian Ji Xianxian, and so on. They were all fighting for a supreme rule. How lively! As they fought, everyone began to besiege Han Huang because he was too powerful. Even Han Tua had to admit that his second brother had already far surpassed him. The three of them arrived at a town and felt the culture there. It was impossible for the three of them to encounter trouble with their cultivation levels. Even if someone dared to find trouble with them, they could resolve it with a thought. After the three of them walked for more than 1,000 worlds, the chaotic battle in the depths of Shirtian continued. Since they had nothing to do, Hanju and the other two stopped on a cliff. Hanju waved his hand and created a screen of light, revealing the scene of a chaotic battle. The two women watched curiously. Chang Yue saw Han Yao displaying his mystical power and couldn't help but sigh. Time passed so quickly. Junior Han's descendants are already so strong. Fairy Shixian smiled. That's right. Although there's a huge difference in seniority between us and them, in terms of experience, we're far inferior to them. She looked at Hanju with a gentle gaze. The greatest providence in her life was when she accepted Hanju as her disciple. Chang Yue asked curiously, Junior Han, who do you think will laugh in the end? Huang Tuar, or your other descendants? That Han Yao, Han Yi, and Han Bahen are very powerful when they join forces. If there's no surprise, it's Huang, but wanting to obtain that rule is wishful thinking. Why? He can't obtain it even if he wins. Yes, there's a conspiracy behind this. It involves the existence who created this great world. His cultivation level is extraordinary. He can't be named or discussed, So I won't introduce him to you, Hanju replied. Chang Yuer and Fairy Shixian looked at each other. Shirtian was an existence comparable to the chaos. Such a world was actually created by a mighty figure? They couldn't imagine it. Could there really be a creation god? Chang Yuer asked curiously. Junior Han, what realm are you at now? Can you compare to the transcendent existence who established Shirtian? Hanju said. I can barely compare. But he has cultivated countless years earlier than me. If we really fight to the death, I'm naturally not his match. Chang Yuer frowned. She thought that Hanju was already the strongest, but she didn't expect there to be stronger existences. The divine might heavenly sage is really humble. Your ability has already surpassed mine. A voice entered Hanju's ears. It was the immeasurable destruction venerable. Hanju replied in his mind. Fellow Taoist, don't worry. I'm only here to play. I won't harm Shirtian. The immeasurable destruction venerable's voice sounded. I hope so. I'm also worried that the juniors will be rash and rude. Hanju replied in his mind. You're thinking too much. I'm also afraid that you'll destroy my great Tao world. The immeasurable destruction venerable snorted, and did not say anything else. From the beginning to the end, Chang Yuer and Fairy Shixian did not hear their conversation. They were still nervously watching the battle, even if their cultivation levels were insufficient, and they could not see the details of the battle. From the scene, they could barely tell who had the upper hand. Han Huang fought more than 100 great Tao sages alone. He was extremely domineering. His strength was clearly on par with his other opponents. The three of them continued on their way after watching for several hours. There were many wonders in Shirtian's world. Several days later, they met in the void. In the dark void stood a lake that emitted 7-colored light. That's right, it was a lake. It was tens of billions of kilometers long and wide. The land and a forest formed a circle that surrounded the lake. Hanju could feel that it contained extremely dense spirit qi. Not only that, but there were also the great Tao of time and space hidden inside. In other words, this lake could connect the past and the future, traveling through the past and present. So beautiful, Chang Yuer exclaimed in surprise. It was all thanks to her that this trip was not so boring. Hanju felt like he was raising his daughter with Fairy Shixian. Fairy Shixian frowned. There are many powerful auras inside. Let's take a detour. Chang Yuer waved her hand and said, Master, what are you thinking? With Junior Han around, what are you afraid of? Could it be that Shirtian's master is lying inside? Fairy Shixian was still very hesitant. She looked at Hanju. He smiled and said, There's indeed a great Tao sage and its companion hidden inside. They're not too strong. We can go in and take a look. Fairy Shixian heaved a sigh of relief. Since Hanju said that, he definitely didn't care about the existence inside. To those at the Freedom Realm, there was no difference between a great Tao sage and a great Tao supreme. That was why she was so hesitant, not knowing if the existence inside threatened Hanju. The three of them quickly entered the 7-colored mountain lake. The existences hidden in the lake and forest did not sense them. Chang Yuer and Fairy Shixian guessed that it was Hanju's doing. How terrifying. He had numbed the other party without anyone knowing. The two women toured curiously, while Hanju's thoughts drifted. Han Huang began to borrow his ultimate origin power again. He had to control it cautiously, afraid that Han Huang would explode. Even a wisp of ultimate origin power was enough for Han Huang to deal with the danger in front of him. Then again, what was that? A mysterious and strange existence appeared in Han Huang's hand. Hanju found it familiar. Wasn't that the strange deity? The strange deity was released by Hanju a long time ago. At first, this fellow would return and then disappear. Hanju deduced that it was not in danger, and didn't care. The strange deity was very similar to the inauspicious evil. All living beings couldn't spy on it, but it could attack living beings. The current strange deity had already condensed a physical body. Hanju had only forgotten to pay attention to it several times. In seclusion recently, he didn't expect it to grow to this extent. Great Tao Supreme. There was something wrong with its body. Although Han Huang's attack could kill it, it quickly recovered. Undying and indestructible, its recovery speed was extremely fast. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1045 Peak of the Great Tao World. Chapter 1045 Peak of the Great Tao World in the Chaotic Void. A dense mist formed by dermic powers filled the air. Looking up, there were spatial cracks everywhere, revealing alternate spaces of different depths. Some cracks even revealed the paleness of a blank domain. Han Huang held two ultimate origin soul oblivion in his hand. He wore a blood-red robe and exquisite silver armor. A red belt was wrapped around his waist like a tendon. His long hair fluttered, and his gaze was cold as he stared at the figure attacking from afar. The figure was completely black and surrounded by a strange white aura. There were countless illusions of vengeful spirits behind him, as if they were connected to his back, or like ghosts struggling out of his body. The great Tao sages in all directions also stopped. "What is that?" Zhao Xinyuan frowned and asked. No one answered him. Even the experienced Lao Dan frowned and stared at the white smoke-black shadow. The white chi-black shadow was the strange deity. The strange deity ate the inauspicious evil as food. It was not a living being, but it had a terrifying ability that surpassed all potential. Han Yi said in a low voice, "Be careful. This thing is a little strange and lifeless. It's definitely not a living being." Han Bahen scratched his head and said, "Could it be a product of the supreme rules? I'm not sure, but with Ancestor Han Huang around, we can let both of them be injured. Only then will we have a chance," Han Yao said softly. He looked at Han Huang's insufferably arrogant figure, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Han Yao wasn't the only one. The hidden sect was also deeply stimulated. This was not the first time they had been defeated by Han Huang together. More than 100 great Tao sages and more than 10 great Tao supremes had joined forces, but they were suppressed by Han Huang every time. This feeling was too uncomfortable. The more talented one was, the greater the blow. For example, Zhao Shuangquan and Azure Heaven Mystic looked at Han Huang with anger and red eyes. Han Huang looked down at the strange deity and asked, "What are you?" The strange deity laughed sinisterly. "I'm very close to you, but you've never seen me before." "Very close." Han Huang frowned, not understanding what these words meant. He had lived for 80 million years and had encountered too many living beings. How could he remember them clearly? Could this be a weakling he had encountered back then? But now it was like a completely different person? However, this fellow's aura was too strange. It actually made him feel a long-awaited horror. The strange deity chuckled. "I also want this supreme rule. Can you give it to me?" Han Huang snorted. "That depends on your ability." With that, the strange deity suddenly appeared in front of him. The white chi around him transformed into a huge net that covered the sky and drowned Han Huang. Everything happened too fast, so fast that the other great Tao sages could not react. However, no one was worried about Han Huang. Boom! The strange white chi was minced by a powerful force. Han Huang held the ultimate origin soul oblivion in his right hand and pierced through the strange deity. The strange deity suddenly opened a pair of blood-red eyes. The space on both sides of Han Huang squeezed and pulled him into a deep alternate space. After all, Han Huang had been through hundreds of battles. He did not panic at all. He controlled the ultimate origin soul oblivion and tore apart layers of alternate space. He quickly found the strange deity hiding in the dark and killed him. Immediately after, the strange deity appeared behind him. Countless resentful ghosts roared and attacked him. Unconsciously, Han Huang felt powerful karma restricting his body, making it difficult for him to move. He immediately mobilized his mysterious and powerful unknown power to disperse the power of karma. The illusions attacked again, causing him to sink into the cycle of reincarnation. While Han Huang was in the illusion, the strange deity immediately attacked. However, Han Huang instinctively waved the ultimate origin soul oblivion and killed him again. The strange deity condensed his body again and muttered to himself, "This kid is too abnormal. As expected of your son." His words were heard by Han Zhu, who was far away in the seven-colored mountain lake. Han Huang's performance was indeed not bad. Even if he was pulled into the endless illusions, he could still rely on his instincts to kill the enemy. Soon, Han Huang escaped the strange deity's mystical power and fought with it. The two of them were temporarily on par. Neither could do anything to the other. On the other side, The other Great Tao sages and Great Tao and Supremes targeted the Supreme Rules again and fought again. Without Han Huang, their chances of success were greater. Han Ju retracted his gaze. Although the strange deity was strong, it was not Han Huang's match. With the ultimate origin power, no one below the Tao Creator realm could defeat Han Huang. The ability of the strange deity was probably going to consume something, but others could not see it. Han Ju retracted his gaze and started to accompany Chang Yuer and Fairy Shixian again. The seven-colored mountain lake contained many natural treasures, especially at the bottom. It was a fantasy forest formed by natural treasures. Many living beings were living there, like people in the water. Most of them had transformed. Their duty was to protect the natural treasures, and the powerful existences outside the lake protected them. In the end, the natural treasures had to fall into the mouths of powerful existences to help them cultivate. It was good to help each other. After staying for a few hours, the two women each picked a golden lotus. This lotus contained great providence. Obtaining this treasure could increase their providence. Providence was mysterious and profound. Like karma, it was unfathomable. To mortals, it was luck. He didn't know why they wanted it. Han Ju couldn't be bothered to calculate or guess. After the three of them left, Han Ju removed the illusion he used on the living beings in the seven-colored mountain lake. In the next few thousand years, the three of them traveled around and saw the most magical wonders and creations of Shirtian. The battle for the supreme rule continued. The three of them returned to the 100-peak Immortal River. Their relationship had warmed up during this period of time. The two women also understood what Han Ju meant and were in a good mood. Han Ju took the time to accompany Chang Yuer alone. This was Fairy Shixian's suggestion. The two of them were alone for decades. Han Ju found Fairy Shixian, but nothing happened between them. They only discussed the Tao. When I attain the Great Tao Isle, Fairy Shixian said softly. Han Ju smiled. It's fine. It's up to you. Our cultivation levels have long surpassed that of a mortal. Companionship is better than any action. Fairy Shixian smiled. Soon, I will definitely be able to attain the Great Tao when you come out of seclusion next time. Han Ju smiled and nodded. The two of them chatted for a while more before Han Ju left. He immediately entered cultivation after returning to the third Tao field. As for Shani, he was still obsessed with the simulation trial. TSK, this kid's opponent was at the Sage Realm. He challenged all the primordial chaos sages in the simulation trial in one go and bullied them in different ways. He couldn't hide his smile. This kid probably didn't know that he could spy on the battle in the simulation trial. Han Ju didn't interrupt him and let him be happy. Tens of thousands of years later, Shirtian's chaotic battle ended. Han Huang obtained the supreme rule, and his name shook Shirtian. This time, he defeated all living beings. Those self-proclaimed top geniuses also admitted defeat and no longer pestered him. Han Huang held the two supreme rules, one of the chaos and one of Shirtian. His aura reached its peak. The entire chaos and Shirtian could sense it. He was extremely ostentatious, afraid that all living beings would not know. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1046 Mysterious Figure. Chapter 1046 Mysterious Figure. In the dark void of the myriad worlds, countless illusions bloomed like epiphyllum. They grew from nothing to big and dissipated like fireworks. Han Huang was among them. Two different rainbow lights wrapped around his body like two souls. He could vaguely see a human figure. He slowly opened his eyes and frowned. Why can't they fuse? Han Huang muttered to himself, his heart filled with doubts. He naturally did not believe that the supreme rules were incompatible, but he had yet to find a suitable method. His cultivation level could no longer increase. He could only think of another way. He had also established his own world in the depths of his soul. However, it would take too long to develop into a great Tao world. It'd take so long that he felt that it was almost impossible. The time needed to develop from the soul world to the scale of Shirtian, and the chaos was not as simple as seas withering and stones rotting. Han Huang thought of the mysterious power hidden in his bloodline. Could he fuse with the two supreme rules if he relied on that power? He immediately tried. Soon, he obtained a trace of the ultimate origin power. Something pleasantly surprising happened. The two supreme rules began to fuse under the ultimate origin power's pressure. Although it was very slow, it did exist. Indeed, there are no rules I can't subdue. Han Huang smiled and began to enjoy the process of fusing the supreme rules. At this moment, the ultimate origin power suddenly stopped, stunning him. He discovered that no matter how he mobilized it, he could not summon that power. It was very uncomfortable. Han Huang panicked. Could it be that his mysterious power had been devoured by the supreme rules? Impossible. That power was invincible. Han Huang calmed down and continued to try. Several hundred years later, he finally sensed the mysterious power again. This time, the mysterious power no longer disappeared when he fused with the supreme rules. He was completely relieved. At the same time, he understood something. He couldn't lose himself if he couldn't completely control this power. Wouldn't he be finished if this power suddenly disappeared in a battle to the death in the future? Han Huang suddenly felt a lingering fear. Could this power be a trap? It wanted him to become arrogant and reliant on it. Then it would betray him when he really needed it. This possibility was not low. Han Huang thought of countless possibilities. There were the enemy's schemes, his father's favor, and so on. However, in the end, he could only decide not to use this power easily in the future, unless he could completely control it. Detected that you are 90 million years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Exit seclusion immediately, and help the ultimate origin world devour other great Tao worlds. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a chance to upgrade the system function. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, and a creation spirit stone. Hanju opened his eyes and silently chose the second option. Although the opportunity to upgrade the system function was precious, it would attract countless troubles. Hanju didn't want to make enemies for now. His cultivation level had increased greatly again after millions of years. His understanding of the ultimate origin fiend celestial had deepened, and in his conceptualization, other than constantly expanding, the ultimate origin world was also becoming more perfected. Hanju began to observe the chaos and discovered that it was also becoming stronger. With the force help of the transcendent, consciousnessless, and Shurtian great Tao worlds, the chaos development speed far exceeded that of before. From the chaos, one could tell the situation of the ninth chaos. Hanju looked at Shani and followed him to the Taoist temple of the 100-peak immortal river alone. He took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing the ninth chaos. No one could see this action, not even his woman and children. If he chased away Shani, he was afraid that it would lead to problems, so it was best to hide and do it quietly. A familiar touch caused Hanju to smile. Sigh. Even as a Tao creator, I'm still so sinister. Although it was shameless, it was really satisfying. Hanju began to curse with all his might, and checked his attributes panel. Although he no longer needed to care about his lifespan, he felt that he still had to be cautious to prevent himself from going overboard. He would exhaust it one day no matter how much lifespan he had. 5 days later, Hanju's lifespan began to decrease rapidly. In the end, Hanju consumed 1 quadrillion years of his lifespan. He put down the Book of Misfortune after cursing the ninth chaos, until his Tao heart was in chaos. He only wanted to delay the ninth chaos, and not curse him to death. If the ninth chaos died, all living beings in the chaos, and the heavenly Tao would be destroyed. There was no need to do that. Hanju still yearned for peace. He would not suppress all living beings or other cultivators if he was invincible. He put away the Book of Misfortune and returned to the third Tao field. Shani had already woken up and wasn't cultivating anymore. Seeing him, he immediately stood up and asked, "Progenitor, where did you go?" Hanju raised his eyebrows. Shani trembled in fear and hurriedly said, "I'm just worried that I'm getting arrogant. How dare I question the progenitor? I went to see my disciples. I have countless such Tao field, and have nurtured countless disciples." Hanju sat down and replied casually. Shani felt deep veneration. He added, "Progenitor, I discovered a terrifying figure when I was studying the curse. The dark forbidden lord is very likely at the end of karma. It's too terrifying. Just looking at his back is enough to make me fear and kneel." Hearing this, Hanju asked curiously, "What does it look like?" Shani waved his hands and revealed what he saw. Hanju saw a black shadow appear in the illusion. It was as if his back was facing the sun. He couldn't see his true appearance, but his figure was extremely blurry. It was not him, and had nothing to do with his descendants and disciples. He began to deduce, and discovered that he could not. Hanju was interested. "I want to know who the black shadow that Shani saw is." "You can't detect this karma. It might not exist or have an ultimate Tao treasure." "Is there a second book of misfortune?" Unable to detect the karma, Hanju tried asking in other ways, but to no avail. This was interesting. He could even deduce the ninth chaos. There was actually something more mysterious than it. He asked who the strongest person was again. After deducting 10 quadrillion years of his lifespan, he learned that it was still the ninth chaos. Could it be that this person came from the future? Hanju fell into deep thought. Shani still described the pressure he felt at that time. "The other party didn't sense you?" Hanju asked. Shani shook his head. "Probably not. In any case, I was so frightened when I saw him that I retracted my will and didn't dare to peek anymore." Hanju said, "It's fine. Continue. This is your path." He would use absolute purification to help Shani if something happened. He had already extracted a wisp of Shani's soul to facilitate revival, so it could be said to be foolproof. There was no need to worry. Yes. Shani nodded and hesitated. Hanju started to check his emails. Seeing that the progenitor was ignoring him, Shani immediately said, "Progenitor, I've attained the great Tao. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com." Chapter 1047 Ultimate Origin Cultivation Potential. Chapter 1047 Ultimate Origin Cultivation Potential. "Oh, not bad," Hanju responded and praised. Shani was depressed. "Progenitor, I'm a great Tao sage. Those seniors told me that I have already reached the peak of the chaos when I passed the door of the great Tao." Hanju smiled. "That's the peak of the chaos. It's not my expectations for you, understand?" Shani was stunned. "Isn't the great Tao sage realm enough?" Hanju said, "To the chaos it's indeed enough. But not to me. I have many great Tao sages under me. There are even many existences that surpass the great Tao sage realm." Shani was stunned. He knew that the progenitor was very strong, but he didn't know that he was the divine might heavenly sage. Apart from the people Hanju specially treated, all living beings had already forgotten his name and only knew the divine might heavenly sage. Shani came from the lower realm, so he naturally didn't know that the divine might heavenly sage was Hanju. The personal disciples Hanju had brought him to see before didn't mention this either. They felt that it was natural, and there was naturally no need to forcefully mention it. Hanju smiled. "Do you want to enter a simulation trial with me?" Shani instantly smiled. "All right, progenitor. I'll surprise you." In the past few years, he had accumulated abundant combat experience. Even if he was not the progenitor's match, he could at least surprise him. Without another word, Hanju immediately pulled him into the simulation trial. A breath later, Shani opened his eyes. He was in a daze. His body trembled and his face was filled with fear. Hanju continued to check his emails. After a long while, Shani still hadn't come back to his senses after he finished reading all the emails. Hanju frowned. Was he too ruthless? He immediately said, "Shani?" His voice was like a thunderclap, recalling in the mind of Shani, waking him up. Shani came back to his senses and sat on the ground. His bearing was not of a great Tao sage, but similar to a mortal. Hanju snorted. "Is that all you've got? I thought you were strong. Stop posturing." Shani didn't know what posturing was, but it was probably bragging. He lowered his head in shame. The previous battle was like a nightmare that could not go away. Hanju said, "Cultivate well and don't slack off. You're still far from it. As long as someone is stronger than you, what happened to you when you were young might happen again. Do you understand?" Shani paled as he hurriedly nodded. Hanju suddenly thought of Fairy Shixian. He looked over and saw that Fairy Shixian, who was far away in the 100-peak Immortal River, had already become a great Dao sage. He immediately teleported to the main Dao field. Shani heaved a sigh of relief and smiled bitterly. Shani, you're ridiculous. How dare you challenge the progenitor? Shani was filled with regret. Half a day later, Hanju fetched Fairy Shixian and Chang Yuer. Xing Hongxian took the initiative to entertain them and talked about the past of the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. The three women sighed. Hanju left and didn't disturb them from catching up. If Chang Yuer wanted to go out and wander around, a clone in the Dao field would send her out. The universe of stars outside the third Dao field was already extremely abundant. There were all sorts of cultivation systems and civilizations. If she was bored, Chang Yuer could go and play. Her life would not be in danger. After all, this was Liu Bei's jurisdiction. Thinking of the universe of stars, Han Ju thought of Hong Jun, who had acknowledged Liu Bei as his master. Hong Jun had already left for tens of millions of years, and had not been heard from since. Han Ju sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus, and began to deduce him. He discovered that Hong Jun was not in the chaos, but had arrived at the transcendent Great Dao world. He had preached for 10 million years, and created his own lineage. He was clearly walking the path of the Dao ancestor. Han Ju naturally wouldn't interfere in Hong Jun's actions. Since ancient times, the Dao ancestor had never schemed against him, and even tacitly agreed to give him the heavenly Dao. The two of them helped each other, and there was no need to become enemies. Even if Han Ju had already surpassed the Dao ancestor, Han Ju watched for a while, and suddenly saw Han Huang. Han Huang was transcending the Great Dao world, and fighting for another supreme rule. He had just succeeded. Was he gathering the supreme rules of the various worlds? Interesting. Han Ju could see that the primordial world had already been established in the depths of Han Huang's soul. Han Ju grew nostalgic after seeing that familiar scene. Primordial chaos was enough for Han Huang to develop for countless years. Han Ju wouldn't stay in the ultimate origin world. Other than constantly raising his cultivation realm, even his physique had to constantly transform. He would leave the other Dao creators far behind, and form an arbitrary advantage. Han Ju didn't want to restrain Han Huang, but let him cause trouble. Han Ju could still revive even if a huge commotion was caused. He had long accepted a wisp of Han Huang's soul to facilitate his revival. He believed that his son also had his own methods. However, only the soul fragment in the Dao field could help him revive if he angered a Dao creator. Then, Han Ju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. Shani also adjusted his state of mind and meditated again. His gaze on Han Ju became firm. Progenitor, just you wait. I won't disappoint you. Shani swore in his heart that he could not lose face anymore. Creation Emperor Court, Heavenly Hall. Han Ling sat on a high seat with a dignified posture. Her gaze landed on the 8 people in the hall. Han Yi, Han Yao, and Han Bahen were all here, as well as the other 5 great Dao sages. My ancestor Han Huang is too strong. I can't snatch him at all. Why don't we find the supreme rules of the consciousnessless Great Dao world? Han Yao suggested helplessly. Han Yi snorted, but he did not refute. Han Huang's strength almost traumatized him. There was indeed no need to fight to the death. Han Bahen smiled and said, I think that supreme rules are useless other than causing trouble. Han Ling said, this trip doesn't mean that you must obtain the supreme rules. I just want you to get used to it, and sense the top strength of the chaos. After this battle, you court should be able to put away the arrogance in your hearts. Next, the Creation Emperor plans to recruit cultivators, especially freedom sages. The more the better. Han Yao, lead the 5 Dao emperors to the netherworld. I want to establish a force there. You have to gain a foothold, no matter what method you use. Han Yao immediately cupped his hands and accepted the order. Then, he left with the 5 great Dao sages. Han Yi and Han Bahen were also about to leave when Han Ling stopped them. After Han Yao and the other 3 disappeared, Han Ling said, I'm preparing to open up our great Dao world in the netherworld. What do you think? Han Yi was stunned. In the netherworld? The netherworld separates the living and the dead, but it's difficult for a sage to appear there, so it's ignored by the living world. I think that the netherworld is feasible. The netherworlds of the various great Tao worlds are connected. I feel that there's a mystery hidden here. I'll leave the matter of recruiting freedom sages to you. You can use your other identities and infiltrate the netherworld. Don't tell Han Yao. Han Ling instructed. She raised her right hand and waved it gently. 2 Emperor soldier shadows landed on Han Yi and Han Bahen. Immediately after, they covered them and transformed into Emperor soldiers. Han Yi sized himself up and clicked his tongue in wonder. Han Bahen asked curiously, "Your Majesty, what should we do when we go to the netherworld?" Han Ling's expression did not change as she said, "I'm looking for a treasure called the Ultimate Origin Cultivation Potential. It's hidden in the Yellow Spring. I don't know where it is, but I've deduced that by obtaining the Ultimate Origin power, one can obtain supreme creation. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1048 Cursing Hanju. Chapter 1048 Cursing Hanju. 5 million years later, a violent fluctuation appeared at the edge of the ultimate origin world in the blank domain. Fortunately, there were no living beings nearby and no one sensed it. The living beings in the ultimate origin world had yet to gain the ability to sense the situation outside. The reason for all of this was naturally because Hanju's cultivation had improved again. The trip to Shirtion had given him a lot of inspiration. His cultivation progress was actually faster than before. Hanju opened his eyes and looked satisfied. The late stage of the Tao Creator realm was still far away, but not that far away. One had to know that he wasn't even 100 million years old. How could he become a Tao Creator at 100 million years old, let alone reach the mid-stage Tao Creator realm? He looked at Shani beside him. He was still cultivating. After this kid was stimulated, his cultivation state was clearly more serious. Hanju was very satisfied. The next chaotic assembly is about to begin. Should I let him participate? Hanju thought about it and hesitated for a moment before deciding to give up. It was better for this kid to stay here. There was no need for all his impressive descendants to shine. Hanju started to check his emails. In the past few years, the most active were the Creation Emperor Court and the Life Faction. Han Huang was busy fusing the Supreme Rules and had not received any news recently. Without Han Huang, the chaos in Shirtion were even more lively. The dark clouds above their heads dissipated before they dared to act boldly. Hanju felt that something related to him had been moved when he was in the middle of cultivation. Because it didn't affect him much, he didn't care and had the time to deduce. Hanju suddenly exclaimed. He discovered something strange. The netherworld of the ultimate origin world actually fused with the netherworld of the various great Tao worlds, forming an independent plane. At first glance, the netherworld was larger than any world, because the great Tao worlds had yet to fuse together. Someone had already infiltrated the ultimate origin world through the chaotic netherworld. How strange! No living being had established the netherworld in the ultimate origin world. Could the netherworld have its own rules? Back then, Empress Hoodoo had only established the cycle of reincarnation and led the heavenly Tao into the netherworld. The ones who infiltrated the netherworld of the ultimate origin world were Han Yi and Han Bahen. No wonder Hanju felt that it didn't affect him much. If it was an unknown aura, with his instincts, he would definitely feel disgusted. A trace of disgust from a Tao creator was enough to crush a great Tao sage. It turned out that the cultivation potential formed by the ultimate origin power had been born in the netherworld of the ultimate origin world. There were only 2 currently, and one of them had been snatched away by Han Yi and Han Bahen. The so-called ultimate origin cultivation potential was only formed by the settling of the ultimate origin power. It was nothing. Of course, this power was definitely unfathomable to the great Tao. Even someone as strong as Han Huang was obsessed. However, how did these 2 brats find the ultimate origin cultivation potential? Hanju continued to deduce, and discovered that the source of this karma was Han Ling. Han Ling could actually deduce the ultimate origin cultivation potential, as expected of a bloodline relative. However, he didn't know if Han Ling had guessed that it was related to him. After understanding it, Hanju didn't care anymore. He stretched lazily and relaxed his body. Shani opened his eyes. Progenitor, you're awake. His tone was respectful. It was different from the past, making Hanju a little helpless. Could it be that the previous suppression was too much? I can preach the Tao to you and help you. Hanju chuckled and started to preach the Tao without waiting for the answer. The moment the Tao voice sounded, Shani immediately entered a state of Tao comprehension. Hanju left a clone to preach the Tao, while his main body went to visit his Tao companions. 1,000 years later, Hanju finished his lecture, and Shani woke up. Shani sighed. Progenitor is indeed the progenitor. Your lecture surpassed my 10 million years of cultivation. Furthermore, it gave me a deeper understanding of the future cultivation path. Hanju said, no matter what, you have to always maintain a humble and cautious heart. Let me tell you about my past. Shani immediately became interested. He sat in front of Hanju and waited expectantly. Hanju started from when he was young. He had said this many times to different people, but every time he said it, it would not cause annoyance. At the same time, this was also for himself to hear. He must never forget how he survived back then. Previously, the system had already let him see how the people who had grasped the system in the past died. Some were as cautious as him, but after feeling invincible, they began to relax and were still doomed. Soon, Shani was entranced, as if he was in Hanju's shoes and facing those dangers. Although the progenitor was too cautious, and even a little timid and unreasonable, he would still help when the people around him encountered a calamity. Shani felt that this was the person he wanted to become. After Hanju finished speaking, Shani said respectfully, Progenitor, I understand your intentions. Hanju smiled. Go curse someone now. His name is Han Fenju. He looks like this. He waved his hand, and a figure that looked like him appeared. Han Fenju was a soul fragment he had thrown into the mortal world 1,000 years ago. Under his deliberate suppression, Han Fenju only had the cultivation of a great Tao Supreme, but he had lost his memories and did not know good or evil. Shani was stunned. He was not stupid. He knew at a glance that the other party was related to the progenitor. He took a deep breath and began to activate the power of the curse origin star. After a few days, Han Fenju finally felt uncomfortable. The curse power activated. Hanju showed a frown. Why was there a delay? Could it be because Han Fenju was too strong? Another few days passed. Shania's face turned pale, and his body began to tremble. It was the backlash from Han Fenju. Hanju immediately took back Han Fenju's soul fragment and memories surged into his mind. Han Fenju did not deduce whether it was good or evil. He could only follow the curse and trigger a backlash. Hanju looked at Shani in surprise. Could this kid really be like the Book of Misfortune? It seemed that the curse origin star was deeply affected by the Book of Misfortune. The Book of Misfortune would consume his origin lifespan. But what about Shani? Progenitor, my cultivation level has fallen. Shani was terrified, his tone filled with uneasiness. Cursing consumed cultivation? Hanju thought for a moment. That made sense. He consoled him. It's fine. Just cultivate again. How much did you lose? If you go out and train, how much cultivation will you lose when you encounter enemies? Shani felt that it made sense, and his expression softened. Hanju smiled as he stared at him. This kid would be his secret weapon. Not bad. Hanju asked. You will walk on the path of cursing in the future. Have you thought of a new name? Just like the Dark Forbidden Lord. No one knows his true identity. Shania's eyes lit up. He thought for a moment and said, I'll be called the Forbidden Lord of Misfortune. How about that? It's all right. It's different from the Dark Forbidden Lord. But from the name, it makes people feel that you're related to him. At that time, the Dark Forbidden Lord can help you share the pressure. Yes, progenitor. Don't worry. I'll surpass the Dark Forbidden Lord sooner or later. I look forward to that day. But that day could not come. Hanju snorted in his heart. It was impossible for this brat to surpass him. Shani added, I saw that mysterious figure again just now. He seems to want to help me curse. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1049 Identical to him. Chapter 1049 Identical to him. Is that so? What happened? Hanju asked. He was indeed puzzled by that mysterious karma existence. He could rely on the system to deduce the Tao creator, but some existences could not, such as the Tao ancestor. This was the interesting thing about existence. Sometimes, some things could not be defined by cultivation level. Shawnee scratched his head. He stared at me and cursed. He even reached out. Other than that, nothing else happened. Hanju narrowed his eyes. That mysterious existence was clearly entangled with Shawnee. Could it be that the mysterious existence was related to Shawnee? If that was the case, he had to be wary in the future. He would purify Shawnee every once in a while. Hanju chatted with him for a while more, before continuing to cultivate. Time passed. The chaos changed drastically when Hanju reached 100 million years old. The current chaotic heroes appeared in large numbers, and occupied an area. It became more and more exciting. The Creation Emperor Court was the most famous. Its rise was so fast that countless ancient giants were shocked. On this day, Creation Emperor Court Heavenly Hall. The evil Heavenly Emperor led a group of divine generals over. Han Yi and Han Bahan stood in front, and protected the platform where Han Ling was stationed. The evil Heavenly Emperor looked at her and sighed. I knew that the famous emperor would definitely be someone I'm familiar with. However, I didn't expect it to be you. Back then, you didn't have any ambitions in my eyes. Han Ling's expression was indifferent as she chuckled. Heavenly Emperor, you and my father are old friends. I'll listen to you if you have anything to say. The two of them called themselves emperors, and the atmosphere was quite subtle. The evil Heavenly Emperor stroked his beard and smiled. I want to ask the Creation Emperor Court to hand over someone. This person is a Heavenly Court traitor. Not only did he betray us, but he also killed many heavenly soldiers in an attempt to obtain the Creation Emperor Court's protection. Han Yi frowned. My Creation Emperor Court has taken in immortals and gods. We don't ask where they came from, so how can we make an exception for you? Hand over that person today, and other factions will come asking for him in the future? The evil Heavenly Emperor smiled helplessly. This person is very important. I have no choice but to look for you. If you're unwilling then. I agree. Han Ling interrupted. Han Yi was stunned. Han Bahan also hesitated. The evil Heavenly Emperor did not expect Han Ling to agree so quickly. Han Ling said, I don't need rules. If anyone feels that I didn't do well, they can leave. However, correspondingly, they will obtain the Creation Emperor Court's hatred. I don't care much about many people, so the karma involved is very small. The chances of being abandoned after joining the Creation Emperor Court are very small, but betraying the Creation Emperor Court will definitely not end well for them. Her words were very domineering, decisive, and filled with killing intent, causing the divine generals behind the evil Heavenly Emperor to frown. The evil Heavenly Emperor looked at her deeply and said, Thank you, Emperor. From now on, if anything happens to the Creation Emperor Court, send someone to inform me at any time. I will definitely support you with all my might. Han Ling smiled. That's good. From now on, the Heavenly Court will be an eternal friend of the Creation Emperor Court. We will go through thick and thin together. She glanced at Han Yi and Han Bahan, who immediately accepted the order. The evil Heavenly Emperor was secretly shocked. Han Yi and Han Bahan's reputations had already been exposed. They were both ruthless figures, especially Han Yi. He couldn't hold back his killing intent at all. The slaughter had already reached a terrifying level. These two ferocious people were so respectful to Han Ling, and even a little nervous. Han Ling smiled. Your Majesty, it's not easy for you to come. Why don't you take a look at the Creation Emperor Court's ultimate origin cultivation potential? This item is extraordinary. Ultimate origin cultivation potential? What is that? The evil Heavenly Emperor was interested. Han Ling waved her right hand. In an instant, the scene in the Heavenly Hall changed. The ground turned into a lake and countless lotuses appeared. They were of different sizes and colors. It was as beautiful as a dream. The evil Heavenly Emperor looked up, and suddenly saw a red spirit herb that was as red as blood. The twisted figure of the grass looked like the same person. The evil Heavenly Emperor raised his eyebrows curiously. He exclaimed as he walked over. How can this be? The divine generals were surprised, not understanding why the evil heavenly emperor was shocked. The evil heavenly emperor turned to look at Han Ling and frowned. Han Ling smiled and said, "This cultivation potential can allow transformation. Once it transforms, it will have the ability to change everything. If your majesty has the intention, when it develops intelligence, I will send it to the heavenly court for nurturing under your majesty for 30 million years. At the same time, it will contribute to the heavenly court." The evil heavenly emperor frowned and asked, "Where did this come from?" "From the netherworld." "The netherworld, is it related to him?" "Perhaps. But, your majesty, are you really not tempted?" "All right, leave it to me. I can rest assured." The evil heavenly emperor looked at the ultimate origin cultivation potential again, and still frowned. Han Ju had just entered seclusion for more than 2 million years, when he encountered someone visiting him in his dreams. "The evil heavenly emperor sent you a dream. Do you accept?" "The evil heavenly emperor sent you a dream. Do you accept?" "The evil heavenly emperor sent you a dream. Do you accept?" Han Ju frowned. Could it be that the evil heavenly emperor was in danger? He deduced and discovered that the evil heavenly emperor was in the numinous palace, and was not in any danger. He hesitated for a moment before agreeing to the dream. The dream was still in the forest outside the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. Evil heavenly emperor immediately started to talk about the ultimate origin cultivation potential upon seeing him. "The ultimate origin cultivation potential looks identical to you. I'm worried." The evil heavenly emperor sighed with a worried expression. Han Ju didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The ultimate origin cultivation potential had transformed into him? Speaking of which, this was his dermic powers. It was normal to transform into him. He smiled. "I understand. Linger shouldn't be plotting against me. But it's indeed not a good thing that the other party looks like me. I'm just worried. After all, many of my sons have betrayed me." The evil heavenly emperor shook his head. The two of them chatted for a while before ending the dream. Han Ju opened his eyes and started to calculate the ultimate origin cultivation potential. The ultimate origin cultivation potential had already developed intelligence, but the resentment was too strong, and the killing intent had already been nurtured. Could it be related to the netherworld? His ultimate origin cultivation potential had absorbed too many ghosts' grudges after staying in the netherworld for so long. If that was the case, it would definitely become a huge problem in the future. No, I can't let it look like me. With a thought, Han Ju's ultimate origin cultivation potential's appearance changed. Although it was very similar to him, it was at least not completely identical. He did not directly erase the ultimate origin cultivation potential. He wanted to see what Han Ling wanted to do. Since he had nothing to do, he wanted to calculate the ultimate origin cultivation potential's future. "I want to know what the strongest state of the ultimate origin cultivation potential is. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Tao Creator? Impossible?" Han Ju frowned, and immediately chose to continue. His consciousness entered the illusion. He discovered that he had arrived above the ultimate origin world. Not far ahead was the chaos. The two great Tao worlds were about to collide. "Ha ha ha, chaos, primordial chaos. Are you ready to welcome my great Tao world? This is the ultimate origin." A wild laugh sounded. Han Ju turned around and saw a black-robed man who looked similar to him, standing above the ultimate origin world, laughing wantonly. "Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com." Chapter 1050 Ultimate Origin Spirit Stone. Upgrade of the Book of Misfortune. Chapter 1050 Ultimate Origin Spirit Stone. Upgrade of the Book of Misfortune. Why is the ultimate origin cultivation potential standing in my ultimate origin world? Han Ju looked at the black-robed man in confusion. The black-robed man looked at the chaos ahead, his eyes filled with madness. At this moment, a domineering aura came from the chaos. Its aura was very unfamiliar to Han Ju. Ultimate origin fiend celestial. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you obtained the divine might heavenly sage's legacy? A cold shout sounded. Han Ju looked over. The newcomer was a great Tao divine spirit. Its body was wrapped in great Tao runes. There were even marks of time rising from the bottom of its feet like flames. Its body covered by the divine light looked extremely majestic and domineering. It wore an emperor crown that looked like the head of a Qilin. Its eyes emitted a blood light, like an ancient war god who had slaughtered its way out of purgatory. The ultimate origin cultivation potential looked down on this great Tao divine spirit with a disdainful expression and said, "Who do you think you are? Tell the ultimate god of punishment, and the 12 divine punishers to come. I'll kill them all. The chaos, the primordial chaos, and even the other great Tao worlds will submit to the ultimate origin world. Whoever stops us will die." How arrogant! How impudent! The great Tao divine spirit shouted angrily. In Hanju's opinion, his aura had already reached the perfected great Tao supreme. Hanju had seen all the perfected great Tao supremes in the chaos. He had tried to spy on those mighty figures hiding in the dark and noted down their auras and faces. But he had never seen this person. It seemed that this was a junior. The current time was too far from Hanju. The great Tao divine spirit suddenly pushed out his palms. The power of the great Tao poured out with a monstrous force. Countless beams of light burst out from the entire chaos and attacked in the direction of the great Tao divine spirit's palms. The scene was extremely spectacular and vast, like a great Tao world suppressing the ultimate origin cultivation potential. Ha 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 dash, the ultimate origin cultivation potential laughed wantonly. Facing the terrifying torrential power of the chaotic great Tao, he was fearless and even looked forward to it. The illusion shattered. Hanju opened his eyes and looked dissatisfied. It was the same every time. It ended before the main event. It seemed that this battle was the limit of the ultimate origin cultivation potential. He would either lose or go downhill. TSK. To be powerful enough to challenge the chaos, the ultimate origin cultivation potential could be considered successful. At least, the future generations would remember his might for countless years. Forget it for the time being. These juniors all had an impressive future. There was no need for him to interfere. Fate would deal with him if he went astray. After thinking, Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. Next, he could welcome the arrival of 100 million years. Year after year passed. 10,000 years passed quickly. This was equivalent to a nap to Hanju. Detected that you are 100 million years old, and your life has taken another step forward. You have the following choices. 1. Absorb the chaos immediately. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, and a chance to upgrade the system function. 2. Cultivate in a low-profile manner and maintain your original intention. You can obtain a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, and an ultimate origin spirit stone. A chance to upgrade the system function. You have obtained a creation heaven's chosen attempt. Excited, Hanju immediately chose the second option. You chose to cultivate in a low-profile manner and obtained a great Tao fragment, a primordial fragment, a creation spirit stone, an ultimate origin spirit stone, and a chance to upgrade the system function. Ultimate origin spirit stone, an evolution of the heavenly Tao spirit stone. It can help Dharma treasures advance. No matter how strong the Dharma treasure that is advanced is, it will attach itself to you and will always be controlled by you. Hanju's eyes flashed with joy. Good stuff. He didn't dare to give his heavenly Tao spirit stone to the Book of Misfortune because he was afraid that it would devour him. Now, he immediately teleported to the main Tao field and took out the Book of Misfortune and the ultimate origin spirit stone. The ultimate origin spirit stone had the same appearance as the heavenly Tao spirit stone, but it was dark red. Hanju immediately fused it with the Book of Misfortune. Do you want to use the ultimate origin spirit stone to upgrade the Book of Misfortune? Yes. Beginning to upgrade, the Book of Misfortune and the ultimate origin spirit stone disappeared at the same time. He was filled with anticipation. Next, he waited here. He could test how terrifying the Book of Misfortune was when it advanced to an ultimate supreme treasure. At this moment, the ninth chaos sent you a dream. Do you accept? Ninth chaos. Why at this juncture? Hanju cautiously asked. Will my life be in danger after I accept it? 100 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. No, Hanju heaved a sigh of relief. He had to be cautious when facing a Tao creator. He silently chose to accept the dream. The dream was a blank domain. He saw the ninth chaos again. It was still so mysterious that his true appearance could not be seen. The ninth chaos said, Hanju, I want to ask you about an existence. Oh, there's an existence you don't know about? Hanju asked with a smile. He couldn't show nervousness, or a flaw would appear. However, he indeed did not feel any pressure. He had already used the mystical destiny book to change the Dark Forbidden Lord's identity. The Dark Forbidden Lord. It said that you've also been cursed by him? Ninth Chaos asked. Hanju frowned. That's right. To be precise, many cultivators of the heavenly Tao have been cursed by him. In the past, I thought that the Dark Forbidden Lord was a spy of the chaotic forces. Could it be that he even cursed you? The ninth chaos said. Of course not. It's just that I deduced his karma, and it will trigger a calamity. So serious? Who is he? You have to call the other Tao creators to eliminate him. I've already become a Tao creator, but I can't deduce his true identity. It's really strange. Could he also be a Tao creator? Hanju frowned with a worried expression. The ninth chaos said. The Dark Forbidden Lord curses with a book. Are there cultivators in the heavenly Tao who use books as Dharma treasures? Hanju said in a low voice. There are indeed many cultivators in the heavenly Tao who use books as Dharma treasures. But there are too many ranges and their cultivation levels are very weak. The strongest is Fuxi. He has the river diagram and the Luo book, and is the Tao ancestor's disciple. The ninth chaos said. The cultivation level of the Dark Forbidden Lord shouldn't be strong. He only obtained an ultimate Tao treasure. You should know how powerful it is. Perhaps it can't threaten a Tao creator, but at that time, it could block karma and prevent the Tao creator from sensing it. Your Tao field should be an ultimate Tao treasure, so when you were weak, others couldn't find you. Hanju shook his head. Senior, are you suspecting me? I cursed you in the Tao field, but you can visit me in my dreams, which means that the karma of my Tao field is not that strong. The ninth chaos was silent. Ninth chaos has a favorable impression of you. Current favorability, 1 star. What the heck? He could even develop a favorable impression? Could it really be a test? Hanju was surprised, but he didn't dare to let his guard down. 1 star favorability was nothing. The ninth chaos said. I'll give you a mission to investigate the Dark Forbidden Lord. I'll give you an opportunity once you find out who he is. An opportunity that can allow a Tao creator to go higher. His tone was calm, but it was filled with confidence. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Calm. Chapter 1051 Birth of the Fiend Celestial. Chapter 1051 Birth of the Fiend Celestial. Wasn't the opportunity to make the Tao creator stronger a creator lord? Hanju looked incredulous and muttered. You can still become stronger. I thought you were only strong because you were the first to create a great Tao world. So there are cultivation techniques to go further. The ninth chaos said. I'll wait for you to discover the Dark Forbidden Lord's identity. With that, the dream shattered. Hanju opened his eyes. He naturally didn't care about the ninth chaos mission. However, he had to consider something. Did the ninth chaos treat the other Tao creators equally, or was it only instructing him? It would not be a good thing if it was the latter. That meant that the ninth chaos was testing him. Why am I thinking about this? I want to know if the ninth chaos really wants me to find the Dark Forbidden Lord's true identity. 100 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Yes, Hanju completely relaxed. That was good. Actually, he wasn't afraid of the ninth chaos. After all, he had the Tao field. He was just afraid of affecting the people he cared about. Even with the invocation Tao, the summoning speed could not compare to the speed at which the killing intent of the ninth chaos spread. Hanju started to check his emails to divert his attention. Your daughter Han Ling has comprehended the ultimate origin power, and her cultivation has increased. Your son Han Huang has fused with the supreme rules, and his dermic powers have transformed. Your disciple Tao Sovereign was attacked by a transcendent cultivator X978211183. Your disciple. Your son Han Tuo was attacked by your good friend, the ultimate god of punishment. Your good friend Huang Zuantian was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Zhao Shuangquan has obtained the inheritance of a mysterious mighty figure. His cultivation has increased greatly. Your younger brother Han Ming has entered the time vortex. Your good friend Azure Heaven Mystic was attacked by your descendant Han Yi and was severely injured. From the emails, Han Ju's circle of friends also began to become enemies. This was normal. After reaching a certain realm, they would definitely want to climb up again. However, opportunities were limited. Fights were inevitable. They would naturally become enemies as time passed. Han Ju didn't think that all his disciples and good friends could always love each other, as long as they didn't become mortal enemies. He would have to take a side and cause the other to accumulate grudges if he appeared. It was very difficult to resolve the grudges at once. But this was also quite interesting. Unknowingly, Han Ju's mentality was also changing. He felt that the things he had worried about and valued were nothing, because he was strong enough. It was very difficult to care about all the disciples, but he had to care about his children. Han Ju didn't allow his children to have grudges against each other. But it would be fine if they were a few generations apart. After reading the emails, Han Ju closed his eyes and rested. His mind wandered outside the world to travel the chaos and other great Tao worlds. The Book of Misfortune finally upgraded successfully 300,000 years later. Book of Misfortune upgraded from an ultimate Tao treasure to an ultimate supreme treasure. A notification appeared in Han Ju's eyes. The Book of Misfortune also appeared. A terrifying black light burst out, causing the temperature in the Taoist temple to decrease to a freezing point. The cold aura made his soul uncomfortable. If even the Tao creator was like this, an ordinary great Tao sage would probably be instantly destroyed in body and soul. How terrifying! Han Ju touched the Book of Misfortune and sighed. Baby, you were once so weak. I've finally nurtured you to this extent. Han Ju caressed the Book of Misfortune for a while. After confirming that it wouldn't devour him, he put it away and didn't curse the ninth chaos for the time being. He would mess with him after some time. Han Ju returned to the Taoist temple of the third Tao field. Shani was in the simulation trial. From his silly smile, he was probably torturing newbies again. This kid liked to fight those with weaker cultivation levels. The number of battles was very similar to Han Ju's, one against many. Since Han Ju had nothing to do, he also started the simulation trial. He challenged 50,000 immeasurable destruction venerables in one go. The immeasurable destruction venerable was worth 2 quadrillion years. He was stronger than the chaotic consciousness and the formless transcendent deity. However, Han Ju was no longer the same as before. He seemed at ease fighting 50,000 immeasurable destruction venerables. After all, he was a minor realm higher than him. He continued to increase the number. His strength had been increasing for tens of millions of years, even if he hadn't entered the simulation trial. In the end, he stopped at 200,000 immeasurable destruction venerables. He was already very satisfied with this. Upon opening his eyes and discovering that Shani was still in the simulation trial, he didn't disturb him and continued cultivating. Creation Emperor Court Heavenly Hall. Han Ling looked down at a black-robed youth. The youth kneeling on the ground appeared to be 15 or 16 years old. His face was very similar to hers. He was handsome and charming, but his eyes were inexplicably cold, like a venomous snake. You're formed by the ultimate origin cultivation potential. I'll name you Ultimate Origin, Han Ling said. The black-robed youth replied. I heard that the strongest in the chaos is the chaotic fiend celestial. Then I'll be called the Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial. In the future, I'll compete with the primordial fiend celestial. What do you think, mother? Han Ling said. Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial? Sure. You don't have to call me mother. Call me your majesty. The Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial frowned. Although unhappy, he still agreed. I'll personally teach you for 10,000 years, and then send you to the heavenly court to train, Han Ling continued. The Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial asked. I can feel that I belong somewhere. Your Majesty, where did you find me? I want to return. There. I can become stronger. So strong that I can surpass all living beings in the chaos. Han Ling frowned. Didn't you hear me clearly? The ultimate origin fiend celestial lowered his head. Han Ling said, I created you. How could you transform if not for me? If other existences find you, they might directly refine you. I'll arrange everything for you, understand? Understood. The ultimate origin fiend celestial replied with a trembling voice. Han Ling said, let me see how strong your innate strength is. Attack me. Try your best. I will bring you to wherever you want to go if you can hurt me. The ultimate origin fiend celestial looked up in surprise. Really? Really? Your Majesty, I'm very strong. You have to be careful. Come. The ultimate origin fiend celestial stood up. Wisps of red chi emitted from his body, causing a shadow to condense on his body. Han Ling was stunned upon seeing the shadow. Indeed. Father, this is your power. After the ultimate origin fiend celestial condensed its Dharma idol, it suddenly attacked Han Ling. The heavenly hall shook. Several breaths later, the ultimate origin fiend celestial lay on the ground in ragged clothes. It was surrounded by thousands of emperor soldiers. In the sky, another emperor soldier raised a divine weapon and pointed it at him. Disbelief appeared on his face, and his body trembled. He had lost too quickly. How could this be? This power of yours is very strong, but you can't control it yet. Your cultivation and body are too weak. You still have to cultivate well. Don't disgrace this power. Han Ling's voice floated over. The ultimate origin fiend celestial gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with unwillingness. At this moment a voice sounded. Your Majesty, Divine Punisher Han Huang is here to visit. Do you want to see him? The voice was like thunder, coming from somewhere. Han Ling narrowed her eyes. Let him in. Don't be rude. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Calm. Chapter 1052 Primordial Divine Spear. Chapter 1052 Primordial Divine Spear. The ultimate origin fiend celestial stood up. A strange expression flashed across his eyes when he heard Han Huang's name. He had been born for some time. Although he had never left the Creation Emperor court, he had often heard Han Huang's name from other cultivators. First Sage of the Chaos, Eternal Peak, Strongest Divine Punisher. Many titles were attributed to Han Huang. His battle achievements had left his name in history forever. The ultimate origin fiend celestial was fascinated every time he heard of Han Huang's legends. How could he not be excited to see the person himself today? Soon, a purple rainbow sped over. A person was riding the purple rainbow. His posture was domineering, and the wind blew with every step. The purple armor condensed from primordial purple chi, had a divine soul attached to it, like a chaotic fiend celestial. He followed closely behind. The ultimate origin fiend celestial looked at Han Huang, shocked by his domineering aura. He couldn't imagine that there was such an expert in the world. Just his aura alone was terrifying. The ultimate origin fiend celestial was stunned. Han Huang ignored the ultimate origin fiend celestial as he entered the hall. He looked at Han Ling and smiled. Fourth sister, I didn't expect you to have such a day. I'm still curious about who the emperor, who can subdue the descendants of my Han family's geniuses is. Han Ling stood up and smiled. Second brother, you must be joking. You must have guessed it. Otherwise, with your temper, you would barge in forcefully. How could you wait patiently? Han Huang smiled and nodded. The more he looked at Han Ling, the more satisfied he was. He glanced at the ultimate origin fiend celestial and said, Fourth sister, let him down. Han Ling smiled. Second brother, don't you think he looks like someone? Han Huang looked surprised. The ultimate origin fiend celestial became nervous. I see. Then let him listen here. It can be considered broadening his horizons. Han Huang chuckled as his gaze landed on Han Ling again. Han Ling smiled. She was no longer as domineering as before. She had the bearing of a younger sister. Han Huang was very satisfied with her attitude. I've fused with the supreme rules of the chaos, Shirtian, transcendent and consciousnessless great Tao worlds. My strength has already reached an unprecedented level. I used the four supreme rules to nurture a divine weapon. This divine weapon contains the power of the four supreme rules, but I still have other things to do. After thinking about it, among the siblings, you're the most powerful, and have your own territory. So I want to give it to you. Divine weapon. Han Ling smiled helplessly. She had handed the ultimate origin fiend celestial to the evil heavenly emperor to nurture, and Han Huang had given her his divine weapon. What was going on? Han Huang said upon seeing her resistance. The Creation Emperor Court is in the process of accumulating power. Obtaining this divine weapon will make it easier for you. I'll bring it away when the Creation Emperor Court becomes a true overlord force. Han Ling smiled. Actually, the Creation Emperor Court also has such a divine weapon. It's this person in the hall. His name is the Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial. I plan to let the evil Heavenly Emperor raise him. Han Huang was stunned. His gaze landed on the Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial again, and he said, Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial? What is Ultimate Origin? The Ultimate Origin Fiend Celestial immediately replied, Above the chaos and primordial chaos is the ultimate origin. Impossible. Han Huang shouted with a displeased expression. The primordial fiend celestial is the strongest fiend celestial, and also has the strongest potential. Have you seen it before? The ultimate origin fiend celestial suddenly realized that Han Huang called himself the primordial fiend celestial. Although all the primordial living beings did not believe him, he straightened his neck and said, Although I've never seen him, that must be the case. Is that so? Han Huang said coldly. A terrifying aura erupted, pressing the ultimate origin fiend celestial to the ground. The ultimate origin fiend celestial looked at him in disbelief. How powerful! He was not inferior to Her Majesty. Impossible. Was this the primordial fiend celestial? Second brother, he's equivalent to my child. Why bully a junior? Han Ling's voice floated over gently. Han Huang's vast aura instantly vanished. Han Huang looked at her in surprise. Although he didn't use his full strength or was serious, he did not expect Han Ling to break through his aura so easily. Amazing. It seemed that he had really underestimated his younger sister. She could be where she was today not only because of Han Yi, Han Yao, and Han Bahen, the three peerless geniuses of the Han family. But this made sense. His third sister had accompanied his father the longest. Now that she was out wandering, she definitely had unparalleled strength. Thinking of this, Han Huang's eyes burst with fighting spirit. He suddenly wanted to challenge her. Han Ling understood what he meant, but she was not nervous or angry. She just smiled. Han Ling smiled and said, Since second brother wants to give me a divine weapon, I'll naturally accept it. Han Huang smiled and said, Thank you, fourth sister. Since Han Ling had agreed, as her second brother, Han Huang naturally couldn't make things difficult for her. How about we spar in the simulation trial when you're free in the future? Han Huang asked with a smile. Han Ling also smiled and nodded. Han Huang waved his hand, and a black spear surrounded by a purple aura descended from the sky. It pierced through the ground of the heavenly hall. The spear shaft shook violently, and emitted a buzzing sound that left the ultimate origin fiend celestial trembling. What kind of divine weapon was this? How terrifying! The ultimate origin fiend celestial was shocked. Han Huang had broken his understanding again. Han Ling's gaze landed on the black spear. This spear was 1,000 feet long, and the spear had occupied a third of it. It was like two qilin coiling around it. The blade was cold and sharp, and was covered in 7-colored divine patterns, formed by the supreme rules. Han Ling could sense that this spear contained powerful vitality and intelligence. This spear was extraordinary. Han Ling waved her hand and grabbed the black spear. Violent purple qi erupted, and the spear shaft trembled, wanting to break free from her hold. However, her eyes narrowed and she forcefully suppressed it. Amazing! Han Huang sighed secretly. He knew how powerful this spear was. Its power was already comparable to the perfected Great Tao Supreme Realm. But she suppressed it with one hand, making it unable to break free. Could it be that Han Ling already had the power to match him? Impossible. His potential was unparalleled, and he had so many opportunities. How could he be inferior to Han Ling? However, Han Huang's eyes were a little complicated when he thought of his father. He couldn't guess his father's intentions. It seemed that he had to go back and visit the old man and spar. Han Huang thought. This spear is called the Primordial Divine Spear. It surpasses Great Tao Supreme treasures. and is already an ultimate Dao treasure. Furthermore, its achievements are not limited to this. It can still constantly become stronger, and even surpass ultimate Dao treasures. Fourth sister, use it well. Han Huang quickly left after saying his piece. The moment he left, the oppressive atmosphere in the hall instantly vanished. The ultimate origin fiend celestial looked at the primordial divine spear with burning eyes. Han Ling smiled and asked, "Do you want it?" The ultimate origin fiend celestial nodded desperately. "In your dreams. Get lost." Han Ling snorted softly. The ultimate origin fiend celestial was embarrassed, and had no choice but to leave. Han Ling looked at the primordial divine spear, and began to consider who to give it to. Han Yi had the world-piercing divine origin, bow given to him by her father. It was not inferior to the primordial divine spear. Give it to Han Yao. Then what should Han Bahen get? As for Han Ling was actually a little vexed. The ultimate origin fiend celestial. She definitely could not give it to him. This child had ulterior motives. She had nurtured him only to make use of him, and would not really treat him like her own son. The primordial divine spear trembled as if begging her to release it. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1053 Han Huang battles Hanju. Chapter 1053 Han Huang battles Hanju. 5 million years pass quickly. Hanju opened his eyes and habitually sensed his cultivation. He was satisfied with his growth. Then, he sent a voice transmission to Han Huang outside the Taoist temple. His second son had returned hundreds of thousands of years ago, and wanted to visit him. But Hanju was in seclusion, so he could only wait outside. Hanju was very satisfied with this. Although this kid was powerful, he was not arrogant. He still had to be polite to him. Han Huang quickly entered the temple and bowed to Hanju, also waking up the Shawnee cultivating at the side. Han Huang also noticed Shawnee. He was secretly curious. Had his father nurtured another seedling? However, this cultivation and aura were too weak. There was also that gaze. He actually felt afraid when he saw him. He was afraid before the battle, and did not have the heart of an expert. Han Huang secretly felt disdain. Hanju smiled and said, "Huanger, how many years has it been since you returned? Almost 100 million years, right? I thought you had already forgotten your parents." Han Huang said in shame, "I'm busy becoming stronger, and haven't fulfilled my filial duty. Father, please punish me." "Oh, how?" Hanju asked with a faint smile. How could he not see Han Huang's suppressed fighting spirit? "Brat, you actually want to challenge me. Be careful not to break your Dao heart." Han Huang's eyes burned. "Why don't you teach me a lesson in the simulation trial?" Hanju laughed. Shawnee looked at Han Huang with a strange gaze, making him very uncomfortable. Ever since he sparred with Hanju, he couldn't have such thoughts anymore. He felt that Hanju was the strongest existence. Hanju smiled and said, "Then come." His eyes narrowed. The two of them immediately entered the simulation trial. In the simulation trial in the void, the father and son were 1,000 feet apart. Such a distance was like a step for those with their cultivation levels. Han Huang looked at his father, and his blood boiled. "Father, do you know how long I've been looking forward to this? Although I'm invincible in the chaos, I always know that you're stronger. You're the peak I want to reach. The ultimate god of punishment is not my match. Those within Shurtian, Transcendent, and Consciousness are all existences that can't match me. Now it's time for me to challenge you. I'm not betraying you. I just want to pursue the strongest." Han Huang said with a burning gaze. The primordial purple chi erupted from his body like a pillar of flames. The four supreme rules of chaos, consciousnessless, transcendent, and Shurtian formed four purple dragons that wrapped around his body. The dragon scales were actually the scales of the great Tao. Hanju smiled. Han Huang immediately attacked. He slapped out with his palms, and the violent divine might great heaven palm struck out, colliding with Hanju with unstoppable force. However, the supreme treasure on Hanju's body emitted a strong light and easily blocked it. Han Huang's expression changed as he continued attacking. However, no matter what mystical power he used, what method he used, or where he attacked, he couldn't hurt Hanju. How can this be? Han Huang had imagined countless situations when he fought with his father. He had thought that he would lose, but he did not expect that he couldn't even break through the defense of his father's Dharma treasure. Impossible. Where did the four great Tao worlds get such a powerful defensive supreme treasure? It was simply unheard of. Han Huang gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Father, you really surprised me. In that case, I'll get serious." Boom! He began to mobilize the ultimate origin power. Hanju clearly felt the ultimate origin power in his body being extracted. Although it was very weak, this feeling was extremely strange. Because the person who borrowed his strength was right in front of him. In that case, I'll let you experience unprecedented power. Hanju began to relax. Endless ultimate origin power erupted from Han Huang's body, surprising and shocking him. Han Huang was overjoyed. Could it be that his father had given him too much pressure, causing him to surpass his limits? Sensing an unprecedented vast power, an arrogant and conceited expression appeared on his face again. He looked down at Hanju and laughed. "Father, do you feel it? This is my strength. It's what I've obtained in the past 100 million years. If I cultivate diligently like you, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to reach it. The primordial fiend celestial was born to fight. It's not something that the chaotic fiend celestial can compare to." Looking at his ecstatic son, Hanju smiled and said, "The primordial fiend celestial is indeed stronger than the chaotic fiend celestial, be it potential or strength." The ultimate origin power within him was still increasing. Han Huang was obsessed with this extreme strength. He smiled and said, "Father, you finally admitted it. Then, do you think I've already surpassed you?" Hanju asked with a strange expression. "Do you really think a chaotic fiend celestial can give birth to a primordial fiend celestial?" Moved, Han Huang asked in surprise, "You?" Hanju's expression became extremely terrifying. He said coldly, "Huanger, today, I'll let you experience the true power above the great Tao Supreme Realm. I won't show mercy. I hope that your Tao heart can stabilize. This is your path to the strongest." An ultimate origin heaven seal appeared above Hanju's head and quickly expanded, becoming endless. Han Huang looked up. His divine sense expanded infinitely, but he couldn't keep up with the speed at which the ultimate origin heaven seal expanded. Soon, he felt that the ultimate origin heaven seal had already exceeded the size of the chaos and was still expanding, as if it was splitting the entire simulation trial space into two. Han Huang looked incredulous. What kind of power was this? Boom! The ultimate origin heaven seal descended with a terrifying might. Han Huang instinctively wanted to dodge, but he discovered that he couldn't jump out of the ultimate origin heaven seal. He could only move repeatedly under it. Why is this? It's impossible for it to be infinitely big. It's impossible for it to have no end. Could it be the rules of space? If it's the space rule, what kind of rule is it? The supreme rule? Han Huang panicked completely. He had never panicked before. He had never been forced into such a situation. The opponent's strength made him despair. Defeat was right in front of him. At this moment, the ultimate origin power in Han Huang's body increased again. This time, the ultimate origin power was too powerful, causing his body to tear apart and emit wisps of red light. His soul was about to jump out. A power that even the primordial fiend celestial can't withstand. "I don't believe I can't break through this seal." Han Huang's expression turned sinister. He roared angrily and punched upwards. The ultimate origin power carried the 4 purple dragons formed by the supreme rules and soared into the sky. It was peerlessly powerful, as if it could even penetrate time and chaos, causing time to reverse and turn immortality into ashes. Boom! This strike collided with the endless ultimate origin heaven seal. But it looked so pale, powerless, and tiny. Under Han Huang's despairing expression, his mysterious power was crushed by the ultimate origin heaven seal and vanished. "No dash!" Han Huang roared angrily as the ultimate origin heaven seal landed. He suddenly woke up and saw Hanju and Shani. The simulation ended. He had lost. He was utterly defeated. He gasped. The ultimate origin heaven seal was still vivid in his mind, making him shiver. His eyes were bloodshot, and his hands were trembling. Shani looked at this ancestor sympathetically and thought to himself, "He's still too young. Logically speaking, that shouldn't be the case." This ancestor should know how powerful the progenitor is better than me. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1054 Bearer of Great Khanate Providence. Chapter 1054 Bearer of Great Khanate Providence. Han Huang was stunned for a long time like Shani after suffering such a crushing defeat. He couldn't recover for a long time. Hanju didn't comfort him. It was a good warning to prevent this kid from getting lost in the ultimate origin power. He couldn't tell Han Huang that he was the ultimate origin fiend celestial. Even if he could trust Han Huang, he couldn't guarantee that the ninth chaos could read his memories. He had to be careful before attaining absolute invincibility. Hanju gestured for Shani to leave. The latter bowed respectfully, and then left the Taoist temple. As soon as he went out, he was surrounded by Xing Hongxian, Qing Waner, and the other disciples, asking about the situation inside. Shani didn't hide anything. No one was surprised to know that Han Huang had suffered a crushing defeat when he challenged Hanju. Hanju was invincible. No matter how strong Han Huang's potential was, how could he surpass his father? Xing Hongxian complained. This brat really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. I have to teach him a lesson when he comes out. Qing Waner shook her head. Sister, don't do this. Leave the matters between father and son to them. Huanger is already on his own, and has his own reputation and thoughts. Let's not interfere. Xing Hongxian sighed. He's been gone for almost 100 million years. It's really long. We cultivate every day and don't feel anything. But to him, too many experiences are enough to change him. She had experienced many troubles when she was young, and knew that experience could change a person's temperament. Qing Waner smiled. Don't worry too much. Husband definitely has a plan. His gaze can see through the entire chaos. Perhaps all the changes in Huanger are in his eyes. Xing Hongxian smiled, and nodded in agreement. In any case, she couldn't control Han Huang. Thus, she would leave it to Hanju. Inside the Taoist temple, Han Huang finally came back to his senses. He knelt in front of Hanju and asked carefully, Father, what did you mean earlier? Are you also a primordial fiend celestial? Hanju smiled. The chaos can only accommodate one primordial fiend celestial. So you were nurtured in your mother's womb for millions of years. Han Huang was moved and asked with a trembling voice, Then you? That's right. I gave you the primordial fiend celestial bloodline, and exchanged it for the chaotic fiend celestial bloodline. Hanju stared at him, and said seriously. Han Huang's heart was filled with regret. He didn't expect that he still wanted to fight his father, after he did so much for him. If it were him, could he pass his bloodline to his son? Han Huang asked himself, and felt that he couldn't do it. He couldn't compare to his father in this aspect. Father, Han Huang's eyes turned red. He had all sorts of words in his heart, but couldn't say them. Hanju said meaningfully, Huanger, you're already very strong. What you have to do is settle down. Do you really think you're the strongest in the chaos? Other than me, many existences surpass you by a major realm. However, not only are their cultivation realms high, but they no longer care about fame and fortune. That's why they gave you a chance to be invincible. What you can see is always the surface. Han Huang was even more ashamed. He should indeed settle down, and not publicize his strength everywhere, after gaining the 4 supreme rules. Excessive publicity made him feel inferior. Han Huang's eyes became firm after thinking it through. Father, I want to create the primordial chaos, but my instincts tell me there will definitely be great danger. Han Huang said respectfully. Hanju said, Then go to the blank domain. With your cultivation level, you're strong enough to survive there. However, you'll be attracted by the chaos to merge once you open the primordial chaos. You'll either be devoured by the chaos or suffer a backlash. From the looks of it, the chaos is more likely to devour other great Tao worlds. Han Huang frowned. Father, what should I do? Wait. The endless era is coming. At that time, many great Tao worlds can coexist. Endless era. I've heard the ultimate god of punishment mention that he needs me to stir up the great Tao immeasurable calamity. But how should I do it? I can't slaughter all living beings, right? Although I'm strong, I'm not stupid. I'll definitely die if I do that. Han Huang frowned even more. Hanju said. Then wait a little longer. There's still some time before the great Tao immeasurable calamity. You should relax and fight less. Give the others a chance. The other geniuses will help you split the hatred when the calamity arrives. Han Huang felt that it made sense and nodded. Then, he told him about the mysterious power he had inexplicably obtained. Hanju smiled and didn't say anything. Han Huang widened his eyes and asked carefully, Father, could it be? There's no need to say anything. This is between you and me. Otherwise, it won't be easy to answer to your other siblings, and will attract unnecessary trouble. Hanju winked, making Han Huang's emotions even more complicated. So everything he did depended on his father. Han Huang relaxed after some thinking. This was also good. If that power came from another unknown existence, it might become a potential danger. Hanju instructed, Huanger, I've given you the greatest favor. Although you're not the eldest son, you should shoulder the most responsibility. You can't stand by and watch if your siblings get in trouble in the future. Understand? Han Huang nodded solemnly. Father, don't worry. I won't let you down. The father and son chatted for a few more hours before Han Huang left respectfully. He quickly left the Dao field after bidding farewell to Xing Hongxian. He told Han Ju that he decided to help Han Ling, and that he would stay in the Creation Emperor court to cultivate. He knew that his father doted on Han Ling the most. After all, she had accompanied him the longest. Han Ju had no objections. Then, Han Ju looked at Han Qinger, Han Tua, and Han Yenjin. Han Tua and the Divine Punishers mixed together and fought everywhere. Han Qinger and Jiang Juesher were still in the heavenly court. As for Han Yenjin, he was already one of the sages with the highest status in the heavenly Tao. It was all thanks to heavenly venerate Xiandu's care. His descendants had their own future. It was fine as long as they were safe. Shani walked into the Taoist temple. Although he was curious, he did not dare to ask about his ancestor. After all, it was an embarrassing loss. He had to give his ancestor face. Seeing that Shani had entered a cultivation state, Hanju began to choose to upgrade the function. He had obtained a chance to upgrade one of the system's functions when he reached 100 million years old. But he was a little hesitant. However, he decided after Han Huang's commotion. I want to upgrade the primordial heavenly prison. The primordial heavenly prison has begun to upgrade. Hanju's eyelids twitched upon seeing this notification. This thing could be upgraded? It seemed that the ultimate origin heavenly prison was next. But he didn't know how powerful it was. Hanju thought. He was about to continue cultivating when another notification appeared. Detected a person with great Khanate providence. Do you want to check his background? It had been a long time. It was no longer Khanate providence, but great Khanate providence. The meaning was different. Hanju immediately agreed. Yu Yuan, late-stage Grand Unity Golden Immortal Realm, Chaotic Human Race, 3000 Domination Body, Grand Primordium Chaos Destiny. Because the chaos absorbed the providence of transcendence, consciousnessless and Shirtion, it caused karma and fate to become chaotic, giving birth to a new providence and creation. The 3000 Domination Body is one of them. It is born with the power of the 3000 Great Tao, and inherits the will of the first chaos. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1055 Ultimate Origin Heavenly Prison. Chapter 1055 Ultimate Origin Heavenly Prison 3000 Domination Body. Grand Primordium Chaos Destiny. Will of the First Chaos. These labels looked so impressive. Hanju was secretly vigilant. Could it be that the 9th chaos was preparing to revive the first 8 chaos? Zhao Shuangquan was the 8th chaos reincarnation. Now, there was another Yu Yuan, who was the first chaos inheritor. How strong would he be when the 9 brothers joined forces? It seemed that the 9th chaos also sensed that something was wrong. The Dark Forbidden Lord had delayed his progress in breaking through to the Creator Lord realm, making him feel a sense of danger. So he began to nurture his brothers. Hanju locked onto Yu Yuan's location. He wasn't in the universe of stars, but he was not far from it. Beside Yu Yuan was another person, the 9-headed divine spirit. After reincarnating for another 100 million years, the 9-headed divine spirit had already returned to the great Tao Supreme Realm. He was now teaching Yu Yuan. Hanju asked in his mind, will the ninth chaos become hostile if I contact Yu Yuan? 100 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Yes, he'll be filled with killing intent. Hanju cursed silently. Could this be a trap? No ordinary mighty figures could not see through Yu Yuan at all. From Yu Yuan's aura, he could only be considered a prodigy, and he was far inferior to Han Huang. Under such circumstances, if he interacted with Yu Yuan, it was obvious that he had a plan. How could the ninth chaos not become wary? If he interacted with Yu Yuan now, he would most likely be treated as the Dark Forbidden Lord. Hanju secretly asked, is the ninth chaos preparing to revive the other 8 chaos? 10 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Continue? Continue. Yes, Hanju's eyelids twitched. However, Yu Yuan was still very weak. Who knew how long it would take for him to cultivate to the Tao Creator realm, let alone the other chaos that had yet to revive? Interesting. The ninth chaos was about to enter the calamity. In the past, the ninth chaos was extraordinary and would not set up such a trap. However, this also meant that the ninth chaos was panicking. Hanju retracted his gaze and stopped looking at Yu Yuan. He would curse Yu Yuan to death when he was about to threaten him. If he could surpass the ninth chaos and become a creator lord before this, he would throw the ninth chaos, Yu Yuan, and the nine-headed divine spirit into the primordial heavenly prison. Hanju smiled even more upon thinking of the benefits. He began to observe the chaos, to see if there was anyone outstanding among his descendants and disciples. 1,000 years later, the primordial heavenly prison has been successfully upgraded and transformed into the ultimate origin heavenly prison. Ultimate origin heavenly prison. It can only be located in the Tao field. If any existence is imprisoned, according to the strength of their cultivation, the imprisoned time will be different until they become a Tao field slave. Their life and death will be controlled by the Lord of the Tao field. Unaffected by any creation, providence, karma, and so on, the ultimate origin heavenly prison can only imprison one living being at a time at most, and transform them into an ultimate origin life form. Domineering, unaffected by everything, it would even transform the prisoner into an ultimate origin life form. In other words, subduing a Tao creator and transforming them into an ultimate origin life form would increase the ultimate origin world's providence and increase Hanju's cultivation. In an instant, Hanju suddenly wanted to go out and capture someone. No, he could only imprison one person at a time. This would take too long and would definitely attract unwanted attention. Although Hanju was not afraid of the ninth chaos attacking the Tao field, everything outside the Tao field was nothing to him. He could completely keep staring at Hanju and constantly destroy the great Tao world, causing Hanju to be unable to advance. When the great Tao world reached a certain level, it would be forcefully lured out, so it was impossible for Hanju to hide. Unless he hoped that his cultivation level would be like this and never improve. Hanju stopped thinking. He should continue cultivating and strive to break through as soon as possible. He had to reach the Creator Lord realm first. The floating islands gathered like stars decorating the blue sky. In a wooden pagoda-like pavilion, a young man was meditating, absorbing the spirit chi of heaven and earth. On a bench beside him lay an old man. This youth was Yu Yuan. He had a dignified appearance and an extraordinary bearing. The old man was formed by the nine-headed divine spirit and looked extremely ordinary, without any immortal chi. Senior, the cultivation technique you taught me is a little strange. Yu Yuan suddenly opened his eyes. The nine-headed divine spirit chuckled. Boundless and profound, right? No, the spirit chi needed for every realm is dozens of times more than ordinary cultivation techniques. Furthermore, this amount will increase as my realm increases. Doesn't that mean that I have to spend more effort than others in the future? Yu Yuan frowned. You're a genius. Isn't that just nice? The harder it is to cultivate, the stronger the cultivation technique. You should understand. But don't think about that chaotic assembly. You can make it in time, but what about after it? The goal you want to break through is not the eternal peak. The nine-headed divine spirit waved his hand impatiently. Yu Yuan sighed and continued cultivating. The nine-headed divine spirit looked at the sky in surprise. Why was the divine might heavenly sage not here yet? Could it be that he really didn't like fighting, and liked to cultivate diligently? The nine-headed divine spirit thought that Hanju would come, and taking Yu Yuan, and turn him into his pawn. However, he had been here for hundreds of years and Hanju had yet to appear. Could it be that he was too anxious? That's right. I'll wait for a while. When Yu Yuan's potential was displayed, and with him here, if the divine might heavenly sage came to deal with Yu Yuan, he would be killed by father. The nine-headed divine spirit's smile became brighter. The only existence who could kill Hanju was his father. Therefore, he had been looking forward to Hanju's arrival. Yu Yuan's identity was a secret. Father had instructed that even other transcendent existences couldn't discover it. Just like that, thousands of years passed. 1,000,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hanju still hadn't come. The nine-headed divine spirit was a little desperate. At this moment, Yu Yuan prepared to go out and adventure. He wanted to try to enter the Creation Emperor court, when he heard they were recruiting immortals in a nearby domain. His birth in the mortal world was considered top-notch, but it was not worth mentioning in the chaos. He had to rely on a major faction if he wanted to gain a foothold in the chaos, and he liked the Emperor's style. The nine-headed divine spirit did not stop him, because he knew that if Yu Yuan wanted to grow up, he had to be independent and not rely on him. He wasn't afraid of Yu Yuan dying. Father had said that he only needed to teach him cultivation, and not care about anything else. What did that mean? Yu Yuan was under father's protection. He couldn't die. Unfortunately, the divine might heavenly sage didn't come. The nine-headed divine spirit thought silently as he parted ways with Yu Yuan. Yu Yuan came to the chaotic void and looked at the vast void. He was excited. Chaos, I'm here. Creation Emperor Court. I want to see how much stronger the geniuses inside are than me. Yu Yuan thought to himself. Thousands of years later, he successfully entered the Creation Emperor Court. His potential was outstanding, and he was favored by a deity, but he was not qualified to come into contact with the Emperor. Not to mention the Emperor, his status in the Creation Emperor Court was still far inferior. Even Han Yi, Han Yao, and Han Bahen were legends far beyond his reach. The current Creation Emperor Court was already a colossus. Its disciples numbered in the billions. They had countless immortals and gods with terrifying levels. Thank you for reading on mybox novel. Com. Chapter 1056 All Sides of the Chaos. Chapter 1056 All Sides of the Chaos. Yu Yuan's trip to the chaos had officially stepped onto the right track. At the same time, the Third Chaotic Assembly created momentum again. After tens of millions of years, another generation of geniuses appeared, coveting the supreme divine throne that represented geniuses. The top 10,000 geniuses of the previous two chaotic assemblies had already proved themselves and become famous mighty figures and giants in the 10 million domains of the chaos. As for the 10 absolutes, they were even more world-shattering existences. Under such circumstances, the chaotic assembly's status was naturally high. Hanju decided not to go personally to the chaotic assembly this time. He had clones in all 3 Dao fields. If any disciple was willing to leave, they could look for his clone at any time. Millions of years later, Hanju was 110 million years old. However, he didn't trigger the reward option, but there was an additional creation heavens chosen. This meant that he had to wait for 100 million years to trigger the choice reward in the future. Although the cycle had become longer, the reward should also become more advanced. It seemed that he had to increase his seclusion cycle to once every 10 million years. Otherwise, it would be too difficult to wait. Moreover, he also felt that 5 million years was too short recently. Hanju started to check his emails. In the past 5 million years, his descendants and disciples had stopped fighting. Compared to the tens of millions of years before, it was indeed much quieter. Hanju asked after reading the emails, Shani, the chaotic assembly is about to begin. Do you want to go? Shani opened his eyes and asked carefully, Can I go? Hanju smiled. Of course. Continue cultivating after you come back. Shani was pleasantly surprised and hurriedly thanked him. Go with your ancestral mothers and protect them when the time comes. Of course. Hanju stood up and walked out of the Taoist temple to visit his Tao companions. Xing Hongxian, Qingwaner Xian Qingjun, Fairy Shixian, and Changyue were also looking forward to the chaotic assembly. They were all prepared to go and watch the commotion. Hanju didn't stop them. At that time, he would send them to the second Tao field and follow Li Yao, Tao Comprehension Sword, and the other Fiend Celestials. Li Yao had been keeping a low profile all these years, but every time Hanju visited her, he discovered that her cultivation level had been advancing by leaps and bounds. She had long reached the perfected Great Tao Supreme Realm, and was still cultivating diligently. It was not difficult for them to dominate the chaos with Li Yao and the chaotic Fiend Celestials around. Hanju came to the second Tao field several days later. Pleasantly surprised to see him, Tao Comprehension Sword immediately pounced forward. Li Yao also opened her eyes and looked at him quietly. Hanju sat down and chatted with them about cultivation. 2 hours later, the three of them entered the simulation trial. Hanju fought Li Yao and Tao Comprehension Sword to test their strength. The two women were both chaotic Fiend Celestials, so the difference in potential was naturally not great. It was just that Li Yao was more determined and focused on cultivating. Tao Comprehension Sword would occasionally slack off, so the cultivation years she had accumulated were inferior. The battle began. Hanju didn't attack, but he let the two women use all sorts of mystical powers first. Hanju discovered that Li Yao's Tao had changed. It was the sword Tao in the past. Now it was still the Tao of weapons, but there were other types of weapons. Using the power of the great Tao to transform into a weapon, it was even sharper. As for Tao Comprehension Sword, it was still the sword Tao. 5 minutes later, the simulation trial ended. The two women admitted defeat. Hanju didn't attack from the beginning to the end. Li Yao sighed. We can't shorten the difference between us no matter how hard we cultivate. Tao Comprehension Sword nodded and looked at him with admiration. Hanju began to discuss her Tao with Li Yao. I infuse Tao with all sorts of weapons, but I actually control the Tao. I want to control all powers. My Tao is to control the Tao. What do you think? Li Yao asked seriously. Hanju said, that's feasible. If you control the Tao, you can do the same thing and return the favor. With all sorts of divine weapons as the formation, you can reverse the stars and overturn the world. The two of them began to discuss the Tao, while Tao Comprehension Sword listened carefully. Hanju finally returned to the third Tao field, after discussing the Tao for 1,000 years, and interacting with them for decades. He sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus, and began to look at the chaos. The first person he paid attention to was Yu Yuan. The current Yu Yuan had already completely integrated into the Creation Emperor Court, and had even made a name for himself. His status had risen very quickly. The Creation Emperor Court's reputation also erupted. With the addition of the number 1 expert of the chaos, Han Huang, how could the various overlords not be afraid? From the looks of it, the Creation Emperor Court was unstoppable. They would definitely be able to obtain great providence when the endless era arrived. Hanju's gaze landed on life again. Life had already turned to the edge of the chaos, and was constantly spreading. Recently, it had not caused much trouble, and seemed to be keeping a low profile. Hanju discovered that Huang Zuantian was missing. He couldn't find his aura in the entire chaos, so he checked his friends list. Huang Zuantian's portrait was still there. Hanju was not too worried. He had greater confidence in Huang Zuantian than in Han Huang. This fellow was very capable of survival. His gaze landed on Li Daokong next. The current Li Daokong was the strongest Calamity Life controller in the Life faction, and was also the leader on the surface. He had fought with Laozi several times, and had both wins and losses. He dominated the Sword Tao, and became a peak existence that countless sword cultivators looked up to. Shi Dudao and Jing Tiangong were still in the Life faction. As believers of the Dark Forbidden Lord, they were very careful. Perhaps because the Dark Forbidden Lord had not appeared for a long time, they did not have the confidence. He looked at the heavenly Tao next, and saw that it had already entered a bottleneck. It lived in the domain under the divine robe Taoist, and could be considered the overlord of a region. However, the surrounding domains were all transcendent factions, causing the heavenly Tao to not dare to expand anymore. The divine robe Taoist had instructed that if the heavenly Tao developed more than a region, it would be surrounded by the great Tao divine spirits. Heavenly Venerate Xian, Du had no choice but to stop expanding. Han Ju felt that this was enough for the heavenly Tao. If not for him, how could the heavenly Tao be where it was today? The heavenly Tao should be satisfied. The heavenly Tao wasn't his great Tao world, so he naturally wouldn't support it under pressure. Even now, Han Ju didn't know if this heavenly Tao was Panga's great Tao world, or the Tao ancestors. Panga had already revived, and was far from the heavenly Tao. He seemed to have severed ties with the heavenly Tao, and had no contact with it at all. The more this was the case, the more Han Ju felt that there was something fishy. Han Ju's gaze landed on the ultimate origin world in the blank domain, after observing the chaos, and the heavenly Tao. At this moment, a huge battle was erupting in the ultimate origin world. Hundreds of chaotic fiend celestials participated, including the figures of the ultimate origin soul race, and the nether race, as if they were fighting for the right to speak in the ultimate origin world. Han Ju watched the battle, without the slightest intention of interfering. The first life fiend celestial to be born had already established a connection with the nether race. It was even Han Ju who pulled the strings. This battle could only be won by them in the end. If they didn't fight, the other fiend celestials would probably not be convinced, so Han Ju left them to it. Even if the chaotic fiend celestial died, Han Ju could use his will to create a new chaotic fiend celestial. The chaotic fiend celestials in the ultimate origin world had already changed greatly. They would transform one day. They would no longer be chaotic fiend celestials, but ultimate origin fiend celestials. Of course, they were still far inferior to Han Ju, the extreme Tao ultimate origin body. They were only equivalent to descendants of the extreme Tao ultimate origin body. Thank you for reading on mybox novel. Com. Chapter 1057 Ancient Primordial World. Chapter 1057 Ancient Primordial World. Progenitor. The mysterious figure I saw earlier has appeared again. He even spoke to me this time. Shawnee suddenly opened his eyes and said with a solemn tone. If it were an ordinary person, they would definitely be shocked by him. It was too sudden. Han Ju, who was observing the ultimate origin world, frowned and asked, "What did he say?" Shawnee replied, "He said that he's coming." "What else?" "That's it. That's it?" Han Ju didn't understand. He stared at Shawnee. Shawnee smiled bitterly. "I can't figure out this sentence either." "Why are you so shocked if you can't figure it out? Are you deliberately teasing me?" Han Ju said in a low voice. A trace of pressure erupted, scaring Shawnee so much that he knelt down and hurriedly kowtowed to apologize. He said with a sobbing tone, "I really don't know, but when he said this, it made me very uneasy. I keep feeling that I can't let my guard down, much less ignore it." Han Ju felt that it made sense and asked in his mind, why did the figure say that to Shawnee? Unable to derive its karma, the other party might have an ultimate Tao treasure. Han Ju had no choice but to change his train of thought. In the following 100 million years, other than the ninth chaos, can there be an existence that threatens my life? 9 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Impossible. Han Ju was relieved. He reminded him, "You did the right thing. You have to tell me everything no matter what happens, but pay attention to your attitude. Don't be shocked, understand?" Shawnee hurriedly said, "I know my mistake. I understand." Then, Han Ju stopped paying attention to the ultimate origin world and entered seclusion. He planned to spend 10 million years in seclusion, so he instructed Shawnee to directly leave the Taoist temple and find his clone if he wanted to go to the chaotic assembly. Han Ju was immersed in cultivation. His will surpassed the ultimate origin world and looked down on the audience. The battles and conflicts of all living beings were only a reflection of history in his eyes. The 3,000 great Tao formed the veins of the great Tao world. The supreme rules were the beams of the house. The entire world constantly expanded and perfected the power of rules. His cultivation level also constantly increased. Somehow, Hanju saw his own transcendent rule. To a Tao creator, the transcendent rule was his soul. It absorbed the ultimate origin world's providence, constantly strengthening itself. As the transcendent rule strengthened, the various life forms in the ultimate origin world reflected in his will. Countless images exploded, looking extremely vast. This process could be said to be fast or slow. 10 million years had passed when Hanju next woke up. The chaotic assembly had long ended, and Shani had already returned to his side. Hanju's cultivation level increased greatly. He was getting closer and closer to the late-stage Tao creator. He also had another creation heavens chosen. Hanju looked at Shani and asked, "Was the chaotic assembly fun?" Shani opened his eyes and was stunned. Then he said excitedly, "Fun. Looks good. It's so lively. Progenitor, I didn't expect your identity to be so high. Those mighty figures that all living beings admire are actually your disciples and children. My horizons have been broadened this time. The chaos is really big. Even if I participate in the chaotic assembly, it will be very difficult for me to make a name for myself." Shani was extremely excited. He began to talk about what he had seen and heard. Hanju also listened with relish. The ultimate god of punishment could successfully carry out the chaotic assembly without him around. Ever since the ultimate god of punishment obtained the recognition of the ninth chaos, his strength and authority had changed drastically. Other than Han Huang, no one below the Tao creator realm dared to provoke him. This time, the hidden sect did not occupy half of the 10 absolute prodigies positions. Only one descendant of the Han family in the heavenly Tao entered the 10 absolute prodigies, but no one from the hidden sect. Even so, the hidden sect's reputation was not humiliated. Shani followed Xing Hongxian and the others, and could be said to have received all sorts of treatment. No matter how strong a giant was, they could smile and treat them with extreme enthusiasm. Hanju asked, "Why didn't you participate?" Shani scratched his head. "I know my ability. I'll just play with curses. I can't win if we really fight." Hanju smiled and didn't ask further. Shani said, "Progenitor, I saw a figure in this chaotic assembly. It feels very similar to the mysterious figure I encountered previously. I mean figure. As for aura, I can't sense it." "Oh, who is it? Tell me." "I think his name is Huang Zuentian." "Yes, it's Huang Zuentian." Shani frowned. Hanju was surprised. Hanju didn't show it to prevent others from thinking that he was related to Huang Zuentian. Really? It's Life Lord Huang Zuentian. He also went to the chaotic assembly, but as a chaotic powerhouse. I was in a daze when I saw him stand up," Shani said seriously. Hanju couldn't help but look at him in surprise. This kid had the talent to tell stories. He even spoke in a cadence. Huang Zuentian was beginning to involve the Tao of Karma? Hanju thought of primordial origin in Huang Zuentian's body. It might be related to him. If not for Hanju, primordial origin should have evolved into a primordial fiend celestial. He might even be the son of the great Tao immeasurable calamity that opened the endless era. Now that primordial origin had perished, he could only parasitize Huang Zuentian. Hanju said, "I understand. Continue cultivating." Shani wanted to continue, but since Hanju said so, he could only shut up. Hanju began to check his emails after Shani closed his eyes. The chaos stirred again after the chaotic assembly ended. Hanju noticed that many of his good friends had created their own world, the embryonic Great Tao world. Before the Great Tao world succeeded, these worlds could only be considered supreme worlds. More and more supreme worlds appeared, making Hanju feel that the torrent of the endless era was already unstoppable. Could the endless era still arrive if the ninth chaos couldn't become a creator lord? Hanju was curious. He visited Huang Zuentian in his dreams after reading the emails. The dream was the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. As usual, Huang Zuentian asked for opportunities first and bowed after confirming his identity. Hanju smiled and asked, "How have you been?" Huang Zuentian said, "Everything is fine. I'm currently in the ancient primordial world." Ancient primordial world? That's right. I didn't expect the legend to be true. Primordial origin brought me into this world. I don't even know how I entered. In addition, I feel that there's something wrong with primordial origin. He has already left my body. I can feel him absorbing a mysterious force. Huang Zuantian frowned. Han Ju said, "The invocation technique I taught you can summon me. Don't panic if you encounter trouble." Huang Zuantian said, "Thank you, Master, but I can't summon anyone. You shouldn't be able to guess where I am. The ancient primordial world is filled with terrifying corpses. I've never seen such a purgatory. I'm worried that primordial origin might lose himself." "Master, is Han Huang really a primordial fiend celestial?" Primordial origin said that he's the primordial fiend celestial, the only primordial fiend celestial. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1058 Immeasurable Calamity Approaching. Hanju's Breakthrough. Chapter 1058 Immeasurable Calamity Approaching. Hanju's Breakthrough. I'm not sure if Han Huang is a primordial fiend celestial. After all, I'm not a primordial fiend celestial. However, from his potential alone, he's indeed very suitable. Perhaps the primordial fiend celestial was not nurtured by nature, but relied on great providence, Hanju said in a low voice. Huang Zuantian nodded. The primordial fiend celestial was a legend after all. If Hanju also knew, didn't that mean that his background was deeper than the entire chaos? Huang Zuantian actually felt that primordial origin was possessed. He dreamed of becoming the primordial fiend celestial. "Master, it's best to be careful. If I can't control primordial origin, he will definitely take revenge on the chaos. At that time, Han Huang will be the first to bear the brunt," Huang Zuantian reminded. Hanju nodded. "You have to be careful too. You can't lose your life no matter what. If you can't suppress it, then don't. The chaos is not as weak as you think." Huang Zuantian was touched. He cupped his hands and said, "I will listen to Master." The two of them chatted for a while more before the dream ended. Hanju asked in his mind, "Can primordial origin transform into a primordial fiend celestial in the ancient primordial world? 500 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue?" Yes, Hanju's heart sank. He tried to deduce the ancient primordial world, but failed. He had no choice but to use the system's derivation function, unable to deduce the ancient primordial world's location. Hanju teleported to the Taoist temple of the main Tao field after seeing this. He took out the Book of Misfortune and started cursing primordial origin. However, the Book of Misfortune couldn't capture primordial origin at all. In other words, the ancient primordial world was not in the chaos or the blank domain at all, but in an unimaginable space. It seemed that he could only put primordial origin aside for the time being. Hanju was hesitating to use the invocation, Dao, to summon Huang Zuantian back. With his current cultivation level, he could already summon only one and not all existences who had grasped the invocation technique. He immediately tried to summon Huang Zuantian. After all, he was loyal to him. He suddenly frowned. No matter how he tried, he could not sense Huang Zuantian's aura. "Forget it, I can only wait quietly." Hanju thought like this. It was strange. He could visit him in a dream, but couldn't summon him. Where was the ancient primordial world? Unable to figure it out, Hanju could only cultivate diligently. He had to break through to the late-stage Tao Creator realm first. Hanju closed his eyes and started cultivating. In the blank domain, the ninth chaos and the immeasurable destruction venerable gathered. The ninth chaos was still a black shadow. It was not as big as the immeasurable destruction venerable, but he knelt in front of him. The immeasurable destruction venerable was like a condensed black cloud. His true appearance could not be seen. His posture was inhuman and emitted the vast domineering aura of a god. "How's the situation?" Ninth Chaos asked. The immeasurable destruction venerable replied, "We can't find it, but the great Tao immeasurable calamity's fate is getting closer and closer. We need to be prepared. When will you start the endless era?" The ninth Chaos said, "I originally wanted to use the great Tao immeasurable calamity to open the endless era, but I need the power to surpass the Tao creator realm to do it. I'm still a little lacking. Now that the great Tao immeasurable calamity is attacking, this is the general trend. It can't be stopped. The immeasurable destruction venerable was silent. The ninth chaos said, when the endless era arrives, I will retire and you will take over my authority. However, if you want to take over this authority, you have to have power that surpasses all the other Tao creators. This great Tao immeasurable calamity is a good opportunity. If you can obtain the providence of the entire great Tao immeasurable calamity, you will shake off the other Tao creators. The immeasurable destruction venerable said, I understand. I'll prepare now. The ninth chaos vanished. The immeasurable destruction venerable stood there for a while before disappearing. In the purple void, blood qi and primordial purple qi interwove. Endless corpses were everywhere, like a desperate purgatory. Countless resentful devils seemed to be crying silently, causing space to distort. Huang Zuantian sat on the head of a huge skeleton and looked at a huge egg at the end of the primordial chaos. There were countless veins on the surface of the egg, and light burst out from its depths, as if a huge heart was beating inside. This fellow is becoming more and more dangerous. Huang Zuantian frowned and thought that all along, it was all thanks to Primordial Origin's help that he could be where he was today. However, he knew that Primordial Origin also had his own goals. If not for his body, Primordial Origin would not have been able to recover his cultivation. Both sides did not owe the other anything. However, now Primordial Origin hated Han Huang and the chaos. He wanted to bring calamity to the chaos and kill Han Huang. He couldn't sit by and watch. The calamity life controllers wouldn't be able to escape death if the chaos was destroyed. Han Huang was even his master's son. No matter what, he couldn't sit by and watch. Should I attack him? Huang Zuantian hesitated. He couldn't figure out Primordial Origin's current strength. He didn't even dare to guarantee that Primordial Origin still needed him. At this moment, a tired voice floated over. Huang Zuantian, I can't withstand this primordial power alone. Are you willing to withstand it together with me? It can at least save you 10 billion years of bitter cultivation. Primordial Origin's voice. Huang Zuantian felt that this was a trap. This was too coincidental. He was about to attack him when Primordial Origin suggested this, and even pretended to be tired. No, killing intent was obvious. Huang Zuantian stood up and flew towards the huge egg. He suppressed the killing intent in his chest. He was extremely nervous. He knew that he only had one chance. He would either live or die. 10 million years later, Hanju opened his eyes. This seclusion made him extremely close to the late-stage Tao Creator realm. He finally smelled the opportunity to break through again. It had been nearly 70 million years since his last breakthrough. It was equivalent to breaking through from the mid-stage to the late stage. It was equivalent to going from a mortal to the mid-stage Tao Creator realm. It was obvious how difficult it was to cultivate as a Tao Creator. Hanju estimated that he would break through in at most 1 million years. He checked the emails mainly to see Huang Zuantian's situation. Soon he frowned. Your good friend Huang Zuantian was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure, and was severely injured. Your good friend Huang Zuantian was possessed by a mysterious mighty figure. Your good friend Huang Zuantian only has a remnant soul left. He was sealed by a mysterious force, and lost his will. So tragic. Hanju checked Huang Zuantian's profile picture, and discovered that his face had changed. He had become even more evil and arrogant. Sigh. Poor thing. Hanju still couldn't deduce Huang Zuantian's location. He was probably still in the ancient primordial world. In that case, he would break through first. At that time, he would wait for Primordial Origin to come knocking on his door. Hanju said, Shani, go out for a while. I'm preparing to cultivate a mystical power. I'm afraid that I'll hurt you. Shani, who was cultivating, opened his eyes. He nodded respectfully and left. With no more worries, Hanju immediately prepared to break through with all his might. His cultivation was a secret. No one could tell he was so powerful. Only then could he hide it and surpass the 9th chaos. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1059 Late Stage. Reappearance of a Transcendent Existence. Chapter 1059 Late Stage. reappearance of a transcendent existence 3 million years later. Hanju began to break through. His cultivation had already been suppressed to the extreme and was about to erupt like a volcano. He finally broke through after 1,000,000 years. Late-stage Tao creator. His ultimate origin power began to increase. Even the ultimate origin world began to rapidly expand and devour the nearby blank domain. Hanju was immersed in this extreme feeling of becoming stronger and couldn't extricate himself. He checked his attributes panel as he consolidated his cultivation. Name: Hanju. Lifespan: 134,001,982/50. 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999, 999,999,999,999. Race: Ultimate origin Fiend Celestial, Immeasurable Emperor. Cultivation: Late-stage Tao creator, Perfect Sage. Technique: Primordial Chaos Reincarnation Great Tao, Heavenly Cycle Body Tempering Technique. Great Tao of Life and Death, Great Tao of Karma, Great Tao of Extreme Origin, Constitution. Extreme Tao Ultimate Origin. Body. Awesome. This series of origin lifespans fascinated Hanju. Most importantly, after reaching the late stage, one could look forward to the perfected Tao Creator realm. Above that was the Creator Lord realm that no one had reached since ancient times. Just thinking of the Creator Lord realm made Hanju's blood boil. He was already very close to invincibility. Hanju's cultivation finally stabilized after spending nearly 800,000 years. The first thing he did when he opened his eyes was to take out the Book of Misfortune. Shani was still outside the Taoist temple. He could curse the ninth chaos without being discovered. He immediately started. 5 days later, his lifespan decreased. A second was equivalent to 10,000 lifetimes. This time, Hanju only spent 200 quadrillion years of his lifespan to damage the ninth chaos Tao heart and reduce his cultivation. As for how much he had fallen, he did not know. However, the chaos showed signs of collapsing again. He did not dare to continue. It was fine to delay the ninth chaos progress. Hanju didn't mind letting the ninth chaos or others step into the Lord realm after he surpassed the Creator Lord realm. It was safer to have the strongest position in his hands. Hanju didn't trust others. He could give peace to all living beings. But as a living being, he didn't believe that invincible people could protect him forever. After cursing, Hanju put away the Book of Misfortune and let Shani in. Shani couldn't wait anymore. He quickly entered the temple and knelt down. "Progenitor, you've succeeded?" Shani asked carefully. To expel him for so long, it had to be an impressive mystical power. Hanju smiled and nodded. "I'm in a good mood. How about I preach the Tao for you and teach you a mystical power?" "Sure." Shani agreed in surprise. Hanju began to preach the Tao. During the lecture, he was also sorting out his Tao techniques. Gradually, his great Tao voice covered the entire third Tao field, immersing all the disciples. The living beings in the third Tao field were all enlightened by Hanju. Their potential was not considered impressive, but with the help of the spirit qi in the Tao field and Hanju's occasional lecture, their cultivation levels were all very strong. They were all already freedom sages, but because they didn't go out, they didn't make a name for themselves in the universe of stars. 10,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. Hanju began the simulation trial upon seeing that Shani was still immersed in Tao comprehension. He challenged 200,000 immeasurable destruction venerables. Very easy, as expected of a late-stage Tao creator. The difference in every minor realm was worlds apart. Hanju continued to increase the number of enemies. 300,000. An increase of 100,000 in one go. They were easily killed. It was very difficult to insta-kill those in this realm. But Hanju didn't feel any pressure. 400,000. It was still relaxed. 500,000. Hanju began to find it difficult. The pressure of 500,000 immeasurable destruction venerables combined was too strong. He stopped here. Perhaps this was not his limit, but as long as it was difficult, he had to be cautious. Only then would he not develop a lazy and disdainful mentality. Hanju was very satisfied with his improvement. He stood up and started to stretch his muscles while checking his emails. Your daughter Han Ling was cursed by a mysterious curse. Your good friend Huang Zuantian has grasped supreme misfortune. Your son Han Huang was attacked by your good friend Huang Zuantian in his dreams. His soul was damaged. Your good friend Zhao Shuangquan was attacked by your good friend Huang Zuantian in his dreams, and was severely injured. Your disciple Ji Xianxian fell into a crack in the blank domain, and into an unknown domain. Your good friend Huang Zuantian has absorbed the ancient primordial world's providence, and his cultivation has increased greatly. Your disciple Dao Sovereign was attacked by the evil devils of Shirtian, X800922283. Your disciple, your good friend Evil Heavenly Emperor has received guidance from a transcendent existence. His cultivation has increased. Your descendant Han Yi obtained a dream from a transcendent existence, and learned a great Tao mystical power. How lively! Huang Zuantian was too active. To be precise, primordial origin was too active. It was unknown if primordial origin had snatched Huang Zuantian's memories. Currently, Huang Zuantian's favorability towards Hanju didn't decrease. In addition, transcendent existences appeared again. It seemed that the chaotic consciousness and the formless transcendent deity had been released. TSK, the Tao creator was playing chess. It was going to be good in the future. As Tao creators, they were constantly suppressed. If it were Hanju, he would definitely be furious. However, the ninth chaos was too strong. They were angry, but did not dare to say anything. If they knew that the ninth chaos was injured, or that the dark forbidden lord could threaten it, they would definitely have a plan, especially the chaotic consciousness. It was extremely rebellious. Hanju continued reading. The emails were abundant, but fortunately, nothing happened to the people he cared about. Now he was waiting for Huang Zuantian to appear. He would attack him as long as Huang Zuantian appeared in the chaos. Huang Zuantian had been loyal for so many years. How could Hanju let him be harmed? However, he still couldn't deduce Huang Zuantian's whereabouts. He was either hiding with the supreme treasure, or was still in the ancient primordial world. Huang Zuantian would definitely find Han Huang. Once the battle started, Han Huang would borrow the ultimate origin power, and he could find Huang Zuantian then. Hanju closed his eyes and continued cultivating. In a dark palace in the Creation Emperor Court, Han Huang was meditating and cultivating. His expression changed and his neck twitched slightly. Something was wrong. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes and exhaled. His eyes were filled with killing intent. You want to snatch the name of the primordial fiend celestial from me? Are you worthy? Han Huang muttered to himself with a murderous expression. He stood up and appeared in front of Han Ling, fourth sister. I'm leaving for a period of time, Han Huang said. Han Ling frowned. Why? Han Huang did not hide anything, and told her about Life Lord provoking him. Han Ling said, second brother must be careful. The other party is clearly provoking you, which means that he's confident. Han Huang waved his hand. I know, so I have to leave to prevent that fellow from attacking and affecting the Creation Emperor Court. Han Ling felt that it made sense. Do you need me to accompany you? Ha ha ha. Fourth sister, you're indeed very strong, but I'm not weak either. After all, I'm recognized by all living beings as the strongest in the chaos. How can I be afraid of a one-on-one battle? Han Huang laughed and left, not giving Han Ling a chance to say anything. Han Ling frowned as she looked in the direction he left. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1060 Great Battle, Madness of the Deities. Chapter 1060 Great Battle, Madness of the Deities. Sect Master, not bad. Li Daokong began to talk about his experiences over the years and subconsciously revealed a proud expression. After a long time, Hanju sighed. Not bad. As expected of the admin, it's a fake episode. It will be updated with correct one soon. Li Daokong was so excited that his face turned red. He knelt down again and cupped his fists. Thank you for thinking highly of me, Sect Master. Hanju asked. Do you want me to preach the Tao? Li Daokong immediately nodded. He would disdain to listen if it was any other mighty figure. However, Hanju was different. He was the strongest in the chaos. Without knowing the Tao creator, Li Daokong felt that Hanju was the peak of cultivation. Hanju sat down, and Li Daokong meditated. This dream lasted for 100 years. Hanju opened his eyes and sighed when the dream ended. A new era was really coming. The generation that had once been protected by him had now become mighty figures who stirred up the chaos. How wonderful! Hanju smiled and continued cultivating. The ultimate origin chi already occupied 80% to 90% of ultimate origin world. Before long, there would only be ultimate origin chi in the ultimate origin world, and no more nebulous primordial chi. The fiend celestial chi also nurtured chaotic fiend celestials. There were a total of 2,947 of them. The remaining were in the second Tao field. Hanju decided to enter seclusion for 5 million years. A million years later, the ultimate origin world was filled with ultimate origin chi, and there was no more nebulous primordial chi. Every million years, new opportunities would appear in the ultimate origin world, causing Hanju's cultivation level to constantly increase. In the blink of an eye, the 5 million years of seclusion came to a close. Hanju opened his eyes. A glint flashed across his red eyes. He felt the ultimate origin world's heaviness, even though it was still in the depths of his soul. Apart from the 3,000 great Tao that formed the order, Hanju discovered that the ultimate origin world itself also nurtured an exclusive transcendent rule. This rule concerned the entire ultimate origin world. Even he couldn't forcefully control it. The ultimate origin world would shatter if he interfered with this rule without permission. This was only for him, the creator. If it was an enemy, they would not be able to sense the existence of this transcendent rule. Hanju inexplicably thought of the transcendent rule of the chaos. It was the rule that restricted talent in creation, preventing his bloodline from being passed down 100%. The two were similar. Hanju still couldn't figure out why this transcendent rule was so powerful. Father, you're awake. Come and spar? I've already attained the great Tao Supreme. I'm really strong now. Han Ling said excitedly, causing Hanju to raise his eyebrows. Previously, when this girl had attained the great Tao Sage realm, she had comprehended 1 million emperor soldiers. Now wouldn't she have 10 million? Hanju was interested. Come try it. Han Ling smiled and said, You have to be careful. Even my second brother from the chaotic assembly was easily defeated by me in the simulation trial. Hanju smiled. The father and daughter entered the simulation trial. As expected, Han Ling directly summoned 10 million emperor soldiers. They all had her dermic powers and were equivalent to 10 million great Tao Supremes. Hanju directly used the ultimate origin soul oblivion to suppress her. The entire process took less than a breath of time. Han Ling opened her eyes and wailed, looking like a cute daughter. Hanju smiled and said, You still have to cultivate. Father is really competitive. You never give in to me. This is the goal of your cultivation. If I really can't suppress you one day, I'm afraid you won't be by my side anymore. Hanju smiled and denied it. He then asked, Linger, do you want to go out for a walk after cultivating for 10 million years? Han Ling shook her head. I've been there before. I know that I'm not fated with the chaos. Hanju didn't insist. By the way, your fifth brother has already developed 10 generations of offspring in the immortal world. Do you want to take a look? Hanju asked. Han Ling looked at him and said, Father, are you going? I still have to continue cultivating. I wonder how many years it will take for me to come out of seclusion. Then, I'll accompany Father. You little girl. All right. I'll personally bring you to travel the myriad worlds and meet the descendants of our Han family after I break through. Hanju chuckled, very satisfied with Han Ling's attitude. Among his children, only Han Ling had the same personality as him and had always been cultivating diligently. Hanju stood up and went to visit the women. After all, they were his Tao companions. He couldn't ignore them. Several decades later, Hanju left the second Tao field and came to the 100-peak immortal river. He entered Fairy Shixian's Taoist temple. Under the management of Han Zuetian and Li Xianao, the disciples of the 100-Peak Immortal River changed batch after batch. Fairy Shi Xian and Chang Yuer had already become extremely senior mighty figures here. Usually, no disciple dared to disturb them because Li Xianao and Han Zuetian felt that they had a close relationship with Hanju and strictly forbade disciples from being rude. Fellow Taoist, I can come in for a chat. In the Taoist temple, Fairy Shi Xian was disturbed from her cultivation. At first she didn't care, and thought that it was an illusion. After Hanju repeated it, she suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and hurriedly said, "Come in." The door opened and Hanju stepped in. The door closed. Fairy Shi Xian was a little stunned upon looking at the handsome Hanju. Hanju also sighed when he saw her. They had once been master and disciple. That youth had already become extremely distant. Fairy Shi Xian regained her composure. She was as cold and perfect as the first time Hanju saw her. "Please sit." Fairy Shi Xian waved her hand, and a mat appeared in front of her. Hanju sat down and asked with a smile, "Long time no see. How have you been?" Fairy Shi Xian replied, "It's naturally good to be in the Tao field. I don't have any worries now. Instead, I feel that longevity is a little boring." "What? Fellow Taoist Shi Xian wants to descend into the mortal world and experience the suffering of the world? You're joking." Fairy Shi Xian shook her head and laughed. She stared at him and asked, "Why haven't you returned for 10 million years? I thought you had already forgotten about the 100-Peak Immortal River." Hanju said, "To you 10 million years is a long time, but I've only entered seclusion twice. It's like 2 dreams." Fairy Shi Xian sighed in her heart. She sighed not because of Hanju's perception of time, but because his cultivation attitude had never changed, just like when the two of them first met. They continued to chat. It was calm, but not awkward. Anyway, Hanju felt very comfortable. Fairy Shi Xian was like an old friend of his. Her attitude didn't change because of his cultivation. Only Fairy Shi Xian was like this among his friends. She seemed to be like this forever, having no desires. After chatting for several hours, Hanju prepared to leave. His heart skipped a beat looking at Fairy Shi Xian's beautiful face. He smiled and said, "Do you have any wishes or needs? I'll satisfy you. Now, I can help you obtain whatever you want. After this farewell, I'll definitely continue my seclusion. It might be 10 million years the next time I come." Fairy Shi Xian was stunned. Hanju wasn't in a hurry and waited for her to make a request. He noticed that Chang Yuer was not in the Taoist temple next door. From the remnant aura, she had left for tens of thousands of years. He secretly deduced and discovered that Chang Yuer had already become Han Yanjin's master. She even protected the Han family, and usually pretended to be a cultivator to travel the immortal world freely. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1061 Fighting All Living Beings, Name of Invincibility. Chapter 1061 Fighting All Living Beings, Name of Invincibility. Han Huang frowned and revealed an impatient expression. "Then I won't care about you. You deserve to die if that happens. I won't be able to take care of you once I start a war with my old enemy." Han Huang snorted and focused on the materials in front of him. As he kept casting spells, the materials began to fuse. He used his dermic powers as a furnace to refine something. The woman in the immortal dress did not say anything else. Instead, she flew to the meteor beside her and meditated. Peace returned to the void. Han Huang was focused on what he was doing, and the woman in the immortal dress looked at him from time to time, her heart fluttering. Time passed quickly. 1,000,000 years passed. The two of them sat here. Han Huang no longer refined Dharma treasures and just meditated. Until one day, he suddenly opened his eyes, a ferocious glint in them. He stood up and revealed a wild and sinister smile. He muttered, "You're finally here. You've really made me wait." The woman in the immortal dress in the distance opened her eyes and stood up. She asked nervously, "You're leaving?" Han Huang glanced at her and said, "That's right. I want to fight an extremely strong opponent. Do you want to die? I'll fulfill your wish. At that time, the aftermath of the battle will turn you into ashes." The woman in the immortal dress bit her lips and did not leave with Han Huang in the end. She looked at Han Huang's departing figure with a faint expression and sighed slightly. Why do you dislike me so much? Are you really afraid that I'll burden you? Han Ju opened his eyes, and a sharp look flashed across his eyes. After millions of years, he had welcomed the 140 millionth birthday. Other than obtaining a creation heavens chosen, his cultivation level kept improving, making him very satisfied. The first thing Han Ju did after waking up was to check his emails. Your son Han Huang was cursed by your good friend Huang Zuntian X90237. Your son Han Huang was attacked by a chaotic cultivator, X1280983323. Your son Han Tua was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure, and was severely injured. Your son Han Huang was attacked by an inauspicious evil, X76332110. Your descendant Han Yi was attacked by a chaotic cultivator, X6439000418. Your descendant Han Yi was attacked by an inauspicious evil, X89000668. Your good friend Huang Zuntian suffered a backlash from a mysterious mighty figure. His soul was damaged. Your good friend Zhao Shuangquan was attacked by cultivators from Shitian X20986872. So many numbers. Was the great Tao immeasurable calamity here? Han Ju didn't sense Han Huang using the ultimate origin power. So he didn't end his cultivation early. He didn't expect him to be surrounded. He deduced that Huang Zuntian had yet to appear. Now Han Huang was surrounded by the entire chaos. In order to help him, Han Yi had also followed him. It was all for the name of the primordial fiend celestial. They all wanted to become the primordial fiend celestial, and the great Tao immeasurable calamity's protagonist. Although Han Huang had become the enemy of all living beings, he appeared very stable. He did not use the ultimate origin power, and completely relied on himself. He was not injured. During this period, many personal disciples of the hidden sect were even defeated by him. His battle achievements spread widely in the chaos, transcendent, consciousnessless, and Shitian, shocking everyone. All living beings saw the birth of an invincible person. He was soaring and unstoppable. Han Ju was relieved. He had not nurtured this kid in vain. He had finally killed his way out. The primordial fiend celestial, and the creation heavens chosen. At the same realm, Han Ju had to make sure Han Huang swept through all enemies. Progenitor, you're awake. Ancestor Han Huang is surrounded. Do you know? Shani asked carefully. He was also a great Tao sage, and could naturally sense and see the chaotic battle. All these years, he had not cultivated much, and had only been watching the show. He wasn't the only one. Xing Hongxian and the other women were also watching the battle. They were all worried for Han Huang, but they were all confident in him now. Han Huang was too strong. As expected of the primordial fiend celestial, Han Ju smiled. Of course I know. With that, he vanished and arrived at Xing Hongshuan's Taoist temple. At this moment, Qingwaner Xian Qingjun, Fairy Shi Xian, and Chang Yuer gathered here. A screen of light floated in front of them, revealing Han Huang's figure. The vast void was filled with blood, qi, and corpses. Countless mighty figures rushed out from every corner of the chaos and attacked Han Huang. One after another, they were like moths rushing to the flame. Han Huang was like the giant god of creation, as he revealed the true body of the primordial fiend celestial. His body was billions of feet tall, and his white hair fluttered wantonly. The muscles on his upper body were terrifying, and the armor and pants of his lower body were already dyed blood red. His eyes emitted a blood light that swept through the chaos. Countless purple dragons formed by the primordial purple qi coiled around his body, and resisted countless powerful enemies for him. This scene was really as if Panga was alive, or even worse. Behind Han Huang, Han Yi held the world-piercing divine origin bow, and shot 10,000 arrows in one star. He was also powerful. The two of them faced the living beings of the chaos, and fought happily. Hanya's body kept absorbing blood qi and negative karma, causing his aura to increase steadily. Even in front of Han Huang, he could not be ignored. They were all comparable to bright suns, but there was only one big and one small. Han Ju appeared beside Xing Hongxian, scaring the 5 women. Why did you come out? Xing Hongxian asked curiously. Han Ju smiled. Of course, I'm here to see our son. Chang Yuer said excitedly. Junior Han, Huang is too strong. There's also Han Yi. I didn't like him when I saw him in the chaotic assembly. He's too arrogant. I didn't expect him to dare to help Huang. The cultivator who attacked Han Huang was at least a primordial chaos sage. Ordinary Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals only dared to watch from afar, or use a formation to distract Han Huang. The closest to Han Huang were Great Tao Supremes. Many existences used the power of the Great Tao world to resist, but they were still suppressed by Han Huang. That Hanju smiled and said, "Of course. Do you see his bow? That's a supreme treasure surpasses a chaotic supreme treasure. I gave it to him. I've never misjudged someone." The ultimate killing star fought with the primordial fiend celestial. It was a beautiful scene. At least to Hanju, it was quite beautiful. Xian Qingjun asked, "What level is above the chaotic supreme treasure?" An ultimate Tao treasure contains unimaginable danger. Han Ye's bow can destroy a great Tao world. As long as he's strong enough, he can even shatter the chaos with an arrow. Hanju's reply caused the women to gasp. Such a powerful supreme treasure? Qingwaner sighed. He's indeed worthy. The descendants of our Han family might not be inferior to your children. Xing Hongxian, Fairy Shixian, Xian Qingjun, and Chang Yuer nodded. Han Yi had proved himself in this battle. The name of the killing god had already spread in the chaos. They had already fought for more than 1,000,000 years, as if they would tire. They kept becoming stronger as they slaughtered everyone. That terrifying killing intent could even be sensed by the universe of stars. It was unsettling and terrifying. Husband, can Huang and Yi win? Xing Hongxian asked nervously. Although the two of them were very strong, more and more enemies came to participate in the battle, including cultivators from other Great Tao worlds. At this rate, the situation was not optimistic. No matter how strong he was, could he fight forever? Hanju replied, "It depends on their willpower." Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1062 Hanju's Preparation. Chapter 1062 Hanju's Preparation. Han Huang and Han Yi welcomed powerful enemies again as Hanju and his Tao companions discussed the chaotic war. This time, it was the Life faction, with Li Daokong as the leader. 10 Great Tao Supremes and more than 100 Great Tao sages attacked together. Their aura caused the nearby void to constantly collapse. Layers of alternate space bloomed like hundreds of flowers, causing the battlefield to become dazzling. Hanju sighed when he saw this. The chaos had developed too quickly in the past 100,000,000 years. It was unknown if it was because the 9th chaos was about to break through, or because of his influence. Be it the Great Tao Supremes or the Great Tao Sages, the number far exceeded the past eras. Thinking about it carefully, it was all thanks to the ultimate god of punishment. He protected the geniuses extremely well, and declared that he wouldn't kill them. In ordinary battles, even if they died, the mighty figures had ways to protect themselves and revive. They were afraid that their mortal enemies would not let them go. The ultimate god of punishment's rule made it so that even if the geniuses died, they could revive. The survival rate of geniuses was high. With time, the number of Great Tao sages and Great Tao Supremes would naturally increase. In the past, the Great Tao sages and the Great Tao Supremes were not top-notch talents. They were all people with brilliant methods and great opportunities. It was just like obtaining the door of the Great Tao that the Great Tao sages needed to cross. In the past, mighty figures deliberately obstructed Divine Lord Peacock. At that time, no matter how talented he was, it would be impossible for him to break through if he was troubled by a mighty figure. Li Daokong is really powerful now. I used to think that he was very strong. Now he has finally grown up. Unfortunately, he no longer belongs to the hidden sect. Xing Hongxian sighed. Chang Yuer smiled. Not necessarily. I heard that Li Daokong has killed countless living beings, but he has never touched any hidden sect disciple. The entire Life faction is like this. It must be his credit. The women looked at Hanju. Hanju smiled and said, "Perhaps he still has the hidden sect in his heart, but only he knows." Seeing his tone and smile, the women guessed that he was still related to Li Daokong, but they did not say it clearly. They were no longer the mortals of the past. The higher their cultivation level, the more afraid they were. Sometimes, as long as they spoke, even if there was no one nearby, they could be deduced. Li Daokong was not Han Huang's match. Later, he used the sword world, a great Dao world formed by countless forms of swords. The sword might was vast and mighty, causing the swords of the chaotic heavens to tremble, as if they were worshipping the sword ancestor. Li Daokong, your sword is stronger than Laozi's. Han Huang laughed. He was extremely happy to see Li Daokong. He had received Li Daokong's help several times when he wandered the chaos, and had a favorable impression of him. Li Daokong stepped on the sword light, that was 100 million kilometers long, and looked at the insufferably arrogant primordial fiend celestial figure. He sighed and smiled. Han Huang, you're really strong, as expected of the son of that existence. But in today's battle, the Calamity Life controllers and I won't stop. I understand. Come. I'm willing to accept the challenge of all living beings. I won't be qualified to become a primordial fiend celestial if I'm defeated. The primordial fiend celestial should be an existence that suppresses everything. Han Huang's laughter was extremely impudent. It echoed in the chaotic void and spread extremely far. The spectators in the distance were all convinced. Indeed, if he's not the primordial fiend celestial, who in the chaos, transcendent, consciousnessless, and Shirtion great Dao world is worthy? Although this fellow is arrogant, he's indeed extremely powerful. Is there really a huge difference between the primordial fiend celestial and all living beings? It's fine if it's Han Huang. Why do I feel that Han Yi is also very strong? He will become the next Han Huang sooner or later. They're both surnamed Han. Could Han Yi be Han Huang's son? Junior, you're wrong. Although they share the same origin, they're not father and son. Han Huang is not the founder of the Han family. No matter how strong Han Huang is, he's not the illusory divine might heavenly sage's match. Han Huang is the divine might heavenly sage's son. How can the divine might heavenly sage stop him from attaining the Tao? Besides, it's impossible for the divine might heavenly sage to care about the primordial fiend celestial's fake reputation. All living beings were discussing. At this point, countless living beings had already become Han Huang's believers, and were extremely fanatical. Han Ju left after watching for a while, leaving the women to continue watching the battle excitedly. After returning to the Taoist temple, Shani was also watching the battle with relish. They were just short of holding a handful of melon seeds. Shani wanted to bow upon seeing him, but Han Ju waved his hand and stopped him. Continue watching. With that, Han Ju sat on the 36th grade reincarnation world destruction Black Lotus. He closed his eyes and thought. How should he use the creation heavens chosen now that he had accumulated 8 attempts? Forget it. I'll wait for another 10 million years. At that time, I'll draw 9 consecutive times. 9 is the limit of the great Tao. It will definitely bring good luck. Han Ju thought silently. At that time, the 9 creation heavens chosen could form a team, just like the 5 great divine punishers in the past. They could be nurtured to represent the 9 great sages of the divine might heavenly sage. Han Ju looked forward to it. It was time to add some fun to his boring cultivation years. Han Ju was a little bored after Han Ling left. As for Shani, he was not interesting enough. This fellow was too nervous and usually liked to torture noobs in the simulation trial. Unlike Han Ling, who dared to continue challenging him, even if she was defeated. Heavenly Court, Numinous Palace. The evil Heavenly Emperor smiled as he sat on the Emperor's throne, and listened to the immortals in the hall discuss Han Huang's reputation. The ultimate origin fiend celestial was also in the hall. He had been sent here by Han Ling for a long time. With his potential, he quickly established himself, and was now the Heavenly Court's #1 prodigy. Hearing Han Huang's legend, the ultimate origin fiend celestial couldn't help but recall the past. He didn't know how far he was from Han Huang now. An old immortal stood up and interrupted the discussion. He cupped his hands at the evil Heavenly Emperor and said, "Your Majesty, this is an era of great conflict. If the Heavenly Court continues to nurture an area without fighting, it will definitely fall behind. The legends of the Endless Era have already spread. When the Endless Era arrives, the chaos will split into countless pieces. At that time, every piece will be independent. Unlike now, living beings from various domains can still interact and trade. At that time, different factions will have different providence. It's impossible for ordinary living beings to enter rashly. The evil heavenly emperor nodded. You're right, but how should the heavenly court fight? Should we fight for the primordial fiend celestial position or territory? The old immortal replied, for territory. No one in the heavenly court is qualified to fight for the primordial fiend celestial position, and Han Huang is on good terms with the heavenly court. There's no need to dispel the friendship. Fighting for territory is the most beneficial. It's best if it's a nearby domain. This way, when the chaos shatters, the various places in the heavenly court will be close and easier to control. The ultimate origin fiend celestial immediately said unhappily, who said that the heavenly court can't fight for the primordial fiend celestial position? The old immortal glanced at him and chuckled. He did not argue, which infuriated the ultimate origin fiend celestial even more. The evil heavenly emperor scanned the expressions of the immortals and said slowly, I'm related to the transcendent great world. I can enter it. At that time, I can obtain a domain 100 times larger than now. What do you think? The immortals were in an uproar. Transcendent? Wasn't that betraying the chaos? Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1063 Huang Zuantian's Backlash. Chapter 1063 Huang Zuantian's Backlash. Won't we become the shame of the chaos if we join Transcendent? Yes, we will definitely be surrounded once it's announced. It's too far from the heavenly court. Your Majesty, you have to consider carefully. Yes, once we go to the transcendent great world, the relationships the heavenly court established in the chaos will all be gone. The immortals were excited and fought to dissuade the evil heavenly emperor. The evil heavenly emperor said, the existence I know can directly move the heavenly court into transcendence. As for relationships with that existence, it surpasses all the current chaotic relationships of the heavenly court. Black Heaven General asked, what about the Divine Might Heavenly Sage? Although the Divine Might Heavenly Sage had not moved for more than 100 million years to the existences of the older generation, this was a name that represented the Supreme. His strength back then was even more exaggerated than the current Han Huang. The ultimate origin fiend celestial's heart was filled with yearning when he heard the Divine Might Heavenly Sage's name. He had never seen that supreme existence, but was already fascinated by him. The evil heavenly emperor said, the Divine Might Heavenly Sage doesn't belong to the chaos. He protected the heavenly Tao. Now, he doesn't even appear in the heavenly Tao. Don't you know what this means? Even people as strong as Tao's sovereign, Li Daokong, and Laozi have already established a great Tao world. Do you think the Divine Might Heavenly Sage didn't? The era has changed. In the future, more places like the chaos will appear. If the heavenly court can't grasp this chance, we can only disappear into the dust of history. We will also become bones in the great Tao immeasurable calamity, paving the way for those eternal giants fighting for providence. The immortals fell silent. The secret of the great Tao world had spread in the chaos, ever since the end of the first chaotic assembly. The fact that the chaos was the greatest great Tao world was no longer a secret. This caused all living beings to guess. Could it be that the chaos was created by a transcendent existence? The old immortal who had spoken earlier said, in that case, we'll listen to your Majesty's arrangements. The entire heavenly court will follow your Majesty to the death. With someone taking the lead, the others naturally followed. The immortals were afraid that if they were slow, they would anger the evil heavenly emperor. Then we'll go to the transcendent world. Perfect. Transcending the savage land requires us immortals to lead. That's right, your Majesty is right. In the future, it will be an endless era. The chaos will become the past. We should unify the transcendent world once we descend upon it, right? The immortals turned extremely quickly and began to discuss how to dominate the transcendent world. The ultimate origin fiend celestial secretly despised them. How hypocritical. He looked at the evil heavenly emperor and wanted to say something, but he was afraid that it was not suitable. What would happen to him if the heavenly court went to the transcendent world? He was only staying in the heavenly court for the time being. He had always thought of himself as from the creation emperor court. The evil heavenly emperor saw through his thoughts and said, "The creation emperor court, our ally, will also go to the transcendent world and support the heavenly court." The gods were in an uproar and became even more excited. The creation emperor court could be said to be the greatest force in the past tens of millions of years. Han Yu was still fighting with Han Huang. His strength shocked the entire chaos. With such a force accompanying them, how could they not be at ease? The ultimate origin fiend Celestial was stunned and was even more surprised than them. Why would the emperor join the transcendent world? Shouldn't she create her own great Tao world? Time passed quickly for Han Ju. You have obtained a creation heaven's chosen attempt. Han Ju slowly opened his eyes upon seeing this notification. He first looked at the chaos. The battle had already ended. With Han Huang and Han Ye's victory, no matter how many factions participated, they were not Han Huang's match. However, although this battle was over, the various factions were still brewing a greater attack. Han Ju could deduce that the four great Tao worlds had begun to connect and wanted to join forces to deal with Han Huang. As for Primordial Origin and Huang Zuentian, they never appeared, making him feel regretful. Han Ju thought for a moment, and still sent Huang Zuentian a dream. Although he couldn't deduce where Huang Zuentian was, he could still visit him in his dreams. In the dream, Huang Zuentian looked extremely haggard, but he still asked Han Ju, "So it's you. Long time no see. I'm pursuing a huge opportunity in a mysterious place. Do you want to hear it?" Han Ju said, "No. Greetings, master." Huang Zuentian knelt down and cupped his fists. Han Ju said, "You don't look good. What's wrong?" Huang Zuentian was furious. "That fellow indeed has ill intentions towards me. He has already possessed my body. However, master, don't worry. I already know a way to devour him. He doesn't dare to completely devour me, because my soul has the fate of a calamity life controller. He can't control my body without my soul." The calamity life controller had such an effect? As expected of the great Tao Providence divine authority, Han Ju said, "As expected of the person I think the most highly of. Your potential might not be as good as Han Huang's, but cultivation never only depends on potential." Huang Zuentian was immediately excited and hurriedly thanked Han Ju for his favor. Han Ju's praise was the most important to him. It was even more meaningful than defeating Han Huang. "I'll preach the Tao to you now, and help you increase the Tao of karma, so that you can use it later. How about that?" Han Ju asked. "Of course. Thank you, master." Han Ju didn't say anything else, and immediately started to preach. That day Han Ju ended the dream. He had used the rules of time in the dream. It looked like a day, but it had actually been 1,000,000 years. The Tao techniques accumulated over 1,000,000 years were extremely huge, but to the great Tao Supreme, they were nothing and could easily withstand it. Han Ju started to check his emails. "Your daughter Han Ling has entered the transcendent great Tao world and obtained transcendent providence. Your descendant Han Yao has entered the transcendent great Tao world and obtained transcendent providence. Your son Han Huang has entered the transcendent great Tao world and obtained transcendent providence. Your disciple Tao Sovereign was attacked by a calamity demon X5920572. Your disciple Zhao Xinyuan. Your disciple Morong Qi was attacked by a calamity demon X285777. Your disciple Ji Xianxian has transmigrated to the chaotic future. His providence has transformed. Your daughter Han Qing'er was attacked by a mysterious mighty figure and was severely injured. Many people went to the transcendent world. Is the formless transcendent deity poaching from me?" Han Ju frowned, but something was wrong. Han Ling and Han Huang had both gone there. Perhaps they had reached some agreement. He tried to deduce, but failed to find out clearly. He had no choice but to use the derivation function. "I want to know why Han Ling went to the transcendent great Tao world. 10 trillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue." Han Ju entered the illusion. He opened his eyes to see a blank domain. Han Ling, Han Huang, and the evil heavenly emperor stood in front of a mighty figure. This figure emitted a dazzling light, like a bright sun, holy and vast. Formless transcendent deity, if you are willing to come to the transcendent world, we are willing to open a space inside and allow you to create your great Tao world. If you are outside, your great Tao world will be led to the chaos and eventually be devoured by it. In the transcendent world, at least there will be us blocking it. The formless transcendent deity's tone was indifferent, as if he was talking about something that had nothing to do with him. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1064 9 Great Creation Heavens Chosen. Chapter 1064 9 Great Creation Heavens Chosen. Hee. Isn't this equivalent to giving you our great Tao world? To catch a turtle in a jar? Han Huang smiled faintly, his tone filled with mockery. The evil heavenly emperor did not speak. He didn't plan to interrupt in this matter. He let Han Huang and Han Ling judge for themselves. The formless transcendent deity replied, "Every great Tao world has its own transcendent rule. My transcendent rule is tolerance. Furthermore, the great Tao world that has already taken form will fuse with the chaos and be destroyed together, turning into an endless era. In other words, the transcendent world will no longer exist in the future. I'm helping you now because I want to give the transcendent world a chance and give hope to all living beings." Han Huang frowned. Han Ling asked, "Will living beings die if the great Tao world fuses?" The living beings of the other great Tao worlds will either become chaotic life forms or be absorbed by the power of the endless era to support it. Han Ling frowned. In that case, it was not a good time to establish her great Tao world. You don't have to worry. Your great Tao world is only in its infancy and can't be considered a great Tao world at all. Other than being absorbed by the chaos, it won't affect you much. If you can enter the transcendent world, it will help you resist the power of the endless era. The formless transcendent deity continued. Han Huang and Han Ling continued to ask questions. The formless transcendent deity patiently dispelled their concerns. In conclusion, it meant that the formless transcendent deity was prepared to sacrifice himself to help them. He only hoped that they could help the transcendent living beings in the future. In the end, the siblings said that they would consider it. Then the illusion shattered. Hanju's consciousness returned to reality. He asked in his mind, "Is the formless transcendent deity sincere? 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue?" "Continue. Sincere." Hanju finally relaxed. He didn't expect the formless transcendent deity to have such intentions. It seemed that the ninth chaos had really forced him to a dead end. Once the endless era was established, the Tao creators who had been absorbed by the great Tao world would become the ninth chaos servants. The ninth chaos had only suppressed them in the past, but they would probably become true servants in the future. Hanju's ultimate origin world could actually accept his children's great Tao worlds, but he wouldn't let his great Tao world shatter. Once he did that, his children's great Tao worlds would be assimilated by the ultimate origin world, and they would never be able to become Tao creators. The formless transcendent deity was different. Transcendent was about to be destroyed. He wanted to contribute to all living beings before the transcendent great Tao world shattered. This Tao creator who transcended everything and was not affected by karma also had human kindness. Will the great Tao world of the formless transcendent deity completely perish when the endless era arrives? It was safer to ask. 1 quadrillion years of lifespan will be deducted. Do you want to continue? Continue. Yes, sigh, poor thing. Wasn't this like survival of the fittest? The ninth chaos had succeeded, but it had sacrificed the future of the other Tao creators. In that case, Hanju wouldn't stop him. He looked at Shani. This fellow was still cultivating. It was time for the highlight. 9 consecutive creation heavens chosen. Hanju flashed into the main Taoist temple. He rubbed his hands and stood up to stretch his muscles. He was a Tao creator, so his body naturally would not go stiff. He only wanted a sense of ritual. Sincerity was the key. After some activity, he sat down again. Activating the creation heavens chosen. A random great creation will appear among your descendants. Your descendant Han Tian has awakened an innate great creation ghostly evil star. Your descendant Han Sinyu has awakened an innate great creation indulgent fantasy star. Your descendant Mo Zong has awakened an innate great creation heavenly blessed star. Your descendant Han Fan has awakened an innate great creation undying fated star. Your descendant Long Minggu has awakened an innate great creation pompous pride star. Your descendant Han Xuanji has awakened an innate great creation ultimate comprehension star. Your descendant Han Zhongdao has awakened an innate great creation heavenly speed divine star. Your descendant Han Feng has awakened an innate great creation abyss dark star. Your descendant Han Wuhui has awakened an innate great creation immeasurable absolute star. Han Zhu looked at the series of messages in front of him. They looked good. He began to check them one by one. The power of these great creations was very suitable for their name. Most of them were descendants of the heavenly Dao's Han family. And there were also Han family bloodlines that wandered outside like Shani. Among them, Mo Zong was also related to an old friend. Mo Zhu was Han Zhu's fellow disciple in the Jade Pure Sacred Sect. The two of them shared a relationship. Mo Zhu had already become a heavenly Dao sage. By chance she met Mo Zong and deduced his bloodline. Seeing his loneliness, she took him in as her disciple. Han Zhu didn't say much about this. Mo Zhu had been cultivating diligently ever since the Mo family dissipated. At the pseudo-sage realm, she obtained Han Yu's help and successfully attained the Dao. The reason why Han Yu knew Mo Zhu was because of Zhou Fan. Zhou Fan had no choice but to escape the heavenly Dao sage because of Mo Fuzhou's request. Mo Zhu knew all of this. She didn't use her power because of this. Instead, she kept a low profile, as if she had become Han Zhu. She had been cultivating silently in these endless years. Not long ago on a whim, she traveled the mortal world and met Mo Zong. Perhaps this was her fate. The disciple she accepted happened to encounter Han Zhu's creation heavens chosen. Han Zhu sent out 9 clones to find the 9 disciples who had obtained the creation heavens chosen. Heavenly Dao, outside the 33rd heaven. In a quiet corner sat a quiet Dao field. There were only 2 female stone statues in front of the Dao door, and no disciples were guarding it. In the Dao field, dressed in a white Taoist robe, Mo Zhu sat on a mat made of countless petals. Her face was cold and her temperament was otherworldly. Her black hair fluttered slightly, and a breeze seemed to be circling around her. In the distance, in front of a stone pillar, a blue-robed youth was cultivating a mystical power. He looked to be 15 or 16 years old, and had a handsome face. His skin was fairer than ordinary men, looking bloodless. The blue-robed youth was suddenly moved. For some reason, he suddenly felt an endless stream of power surge in his body, transforming his body. This feeling was too wonderful, as if he had broken through a major cultivation realm. Han Zhu appeared beside the blue-robed youth and smiled. Your mystical power is cultivated like a mortal practicing martial arts. You've let down your talent. The blue-robed youth was shocked and hurriedly jumped away. He asked nervously, "Who are you?" He immediately turned to look at Mo Zhu and shouted, "Master, there's an enemy." Mo Zhu opened her eyes and was stunned when she saw Han Zhu. Han Zhu didn't turn around. Instead, he stared at Mo Zong and smiled. "How about I teach you a mystical power?" Mo Zong gritted his teeth. "No, I have a master." Han Zhu's expression suddenly turned cold, and he said with killing intent, "Can you stop me if I want to kill your master?" A terrifying killing intent locked onto Mo Zong, scaring him so much that he instantly collapsed to the ground. He was covered in sweat as he looked at Han Zhu in fear. He had never felt such killing intent. Thank you for reading on my box novel. Com. Chapter 1065 9 Divine Stars, 9 Extremes Orthodoxy. Chapter 1065 9 Divine Stars, 9 Extremes Orthodoxy. Mo Zong was frightened and didn't know what to do upon facing the murderous Han Zhu. Han Zhu said coldly, "I'll kill your master now." His eyes narrowed. Mo Zong saw him turn around and attack Mo Zhu. The unfathomable Mo Zhu in his eyes was directly blown away. "No dash!" Mo Zong shouted miserably. He suddenly stood up and rushed towards Han Zhu. Just as he stood up, he was imprisoned by an invisible force and was unable to move. Mo Zong looked at him with bloodshot eyes. His eyes were filled with hatred and killing intent. Stop teasing him. He's just a kid. Emo Zhu's voice suddenly floated over. Emo Zong subconsciously glanced over. Emo Zhu, who had just been reduced to ashes, had appeared again, and was walking towards them. Looking at Han Zhu again, the coldness on his face disappeared, and was replaced by a refreshing smile. Coupled with his extremely handsome face, even Emo Zong was a little absent-minded. What's happening? Emo Zong asked in a puzzled tone upon sensing that the powerful force binding him had disappeared. No matter how stupid he was, he could tell that Han Zhu was not an enemy. He was teasing him just now. Emo Zhu walked to Han Zhu's side and asked, "Are you here for him?" Han Zhu smiled and nodded. Emo Zhu looked at Emo Zhou and said, "Hurry up and kneel down to acknowledge your ancestor." Ancestor? Emo Zong was stunned. He naturally believed his master's words. So he knelt down and kowtowed to Han Zhu. Han Zhu looked at him and asked, "How have you been all these years?" Emo Zhu looked at him with a complicated expression. "Not bad. Thank you for taking care of me." The two of them looked at each other in silence. The past floated before their eyes. Han Zhu no longer cared about their past, but to Emo Zhu, the memories were vivid. Along the way, she could be said to have listened to Han Zhu's legendary deeds as she cultivated. She felt regret and helplessness, and then gradually became determined. Han Zhu didn't object to Emo Zhu choosing her family back then. Everyone had their own choices. He had never wanted everyone to revolve around him. Han Zhu looked at Emo Zong and asked, "Do you feel the power in your body?" Emo Zong asked in surprise, "Could this power be your?" He could tell that this ancestor in front of him had a close relationship with his master. Could it be because of this relationship that his master accepted him? Emo Zong had mixed emotions. Han Zhu smiled. "It's good that you understand. You don't have to say it." Emo Zong was silent. Han Zhu smiled and said, "I'll stay here and teach you for a period of time." He looked at Emo Zhu. Emo Zhu hurriedly said, "You can stay if you want." She became nervous. This emotion had not appeared for more than 100 million years. It was so long that she almost forgot that she was also alone. Just like that, Han Zhu's clone stayed. The other 8 clones were the same. They didn't directly save the other 8 descendants of the creation heavens chosen, but gave them a process of acceptance. Han Zhu's main body returned to the third Taoist temple. After some time, "I'll bring back 9 descendants who can be considered your juniors. You'll have to take care of them." Shani opened his eyes. He asked carefully, "Could it be that they were also, MM?" Han Zhu nodded. Shani became even more nervous. 9 powerful competitors were coming. Could it be that the progenitor was dissatisfied with his cultivation progress? Han Zhu said, "You don't have to think too much. There will be more in the future. I can't only nurture you. I'll do this every once in a while. You'll also build good karma, if you can teach them and take care of them." Shani felt that it made sense and immediately agreed. 100 years later, Han Zhu's 9 clones returned with 9 descendants. Not only them, but even Emo Zhu was brought back and stayed in the third Dao field. Upon seeing Emo Zhu, Xing Hongxian, Fairy Shixian, and Chang Yuer were all overjoyed. Time had passed, and it was not easy to meet an old friend. Inside the Taoist temple, the 9 descendants of the Han family meditated side by side and looked at Han Zhu in admiration. All these years, Han Zhu's clone had already become familiar with them and established a relationship. After coming to the third Dao field, they heard the progenitor's title, Divine Might Heavenly Sage. This name was the supreme word of the Heavenly Dao. They didn't know about the ancestor in Pangu until the Divine Might Heavenly Sage was the guardian of the Heavenly Dao. They didn't expect their progenitor to have such a background. Shani looked at the 9 new faces inside. He seemed to see 9 unparalleled mighty figures about to rise. Although these guys looked young, he could sense the mysterious power in their bodies and their limitless potential. "I'll give you great opportunities and allow you to be reborn. What you have to do is cultivate here well. You are not allowed to leave without my permission. You might have to spend hundreds of millions of years here, or even longer," Han Zhu said seriously. No one retorted because Han Zhu's clone had already told them before coming. Next, Han Zhu began to preach. After preaching for 1,000 years, the cultivation levels of the 9 great creation cultivators all soared. In the end, Hanju appointed Han Zhongdao, who cultivated the fastest, as the leader. He gave them the name 9 divine stars, and they would only serve him in the future. Hanju began to cultivate in seclusion. Shani left the Taoist temple with the 9 divine stars, and they started to get to know each other. The 9 divine stars all wanted to know Hanju's deeds. Shani didn't hide anything from them, and even mentioned the other mighty figures of the Han family. The more Shani talked about them, the more excited they became. The 9 divine stars also felt their blood boil. They all targeted Han Huang, and also wanted to be invincible in the chaos. On the other side, as more and more chaotic factions joined the transcendent Great Tao world, the consciousnessless Great Tao world, and the Shirtian Great Tao world also began to imitate it. For a time, the entire chaos swayed. All living beings were worried that the chaos would be eaten. At this moment, an eternal peak appeared and wanted to unify the chaos. It was the eternal peak of the Second Chaotic Assembly, Zhao Shuangquan. Zhao Shuangquan left the heavenly Tao and established the 9 extremes orthodoxy alone. He first absorbed countless geniuses and began to expand his domain. He used the excuse of resisting the 3 great Tao worlds to unify them, causing countless experts to seek refuge. The ultimate god of punishment did not stop him, causing the great Tao divine spirits to secretly wonder. The leader of the divine spirits had said that there was no need to unite the chaos, so Zhao Shuangquan's actions were equivalent to a slap in the face. However, the ultimate god of punishment did not say anything, and the great Tao divine spirits did not dare to act recklessly. Zhao Shuangquan had already grown up, and was also a divine punisher. His status surpassed most great Tao divine spirits. 10 million years passed quickly. Hanju reached 160 million years old, and obtained a creation heavens chosen. The chaotic assembly was about to begin when the chaos became chaotic again. The geniuses of the other great Tao worlds would participate this time. It was known as an unprecedented chaotic assembly. Its foundation and difficulties far exceeded previous ones. Hanju looked at the 9 divine stars meditating in front of him. They were all already great Tao sages. They had become great Tao sages in 10 million years, and were still considered top-notch in the current chaos. Thank you for reading on my box novel. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.